from the high desert in the great American Southwest, I bid you all good evening, good morning, as the case may be, across all these many, many, many time zones, and welcome to another edition of the best in live overnight talk radio from the Hawaiian and Tahitian Islands in the West, all the way across this great nation, to the Caribbean and the U.S. Virgin Islands, south into South America, north to the pole, worldwide on the internet. This is Coast to Coast AM. Good to be here. If everything goes as scheduled, Apollo 14 astronauts. Yes, that's right. Edgar Mitchell. Dr. Edgar Mitchell will be here at 1 a.m. Pacific time. That's 2 hours, roughly, from now. And we'll have, hopefully, a good talk with him. I've always wanted to talk with somebody who walked on the moon. What about you? And toward that end, if you have any questions you would like me to ask him, it'd be good to get them in early, either by fax or telephone. I've got a number of my own. You know what I want to know? I've always wanted to know, walking on the moon, whether it was fun. And a lot about it, but I've always wanted to know. Haven't you? What would it be like to walk on the moon? To walk on another, well, if not planet, then planetary-like body moon. To leave the world. Not a lot of us have done that. So that should be an interesting interview. I understand he's a very interesting man. Meanwhile, there is a very great deal of news to talk about, and not very good news, I'm sorry to say, in the San Francisco Bay Area, where a 6-year-old is accused of almost beating to death a barely 30-day-old infant. You know, that 6-year-old charged with attempted murder. Attempted murder. The latest chilling news is, and really it couldn't be worse, that it may have been planned. In other words, planned. Premeditated murder. A planned murder. In court today, the accused 6-year-old clutched his grandfather as the prosecutor revealed disturbing new information, saying that the boy claimed that he had to kill the baby because he believed the family of the 4-week-old infant, barely a month old, had been harassing him. The 8-year-old twins charged with burglary are going to go home in their mother's care, but this judge ordered the 6-year-old to remain in juvenile custody. Now, the child's lawyer wants medical help for the 6-year-old. Of course, the prosecutor says the child knew exactly what it was doing, knew right from wrong. The 8-year-old's attorney said, "It's a sad day in America when we deal with children of this age by criminal prosecution." The infant in question, by the way, not yet dead, but in critical condition on life support at this hour for day number 5, soon day number 6. And they talk as though they don't think the child is going to make it. I'd say it's a pretty sad day in America when children of this age allegedly plot murder. The justice system has no idea how to handle this, and I don't either. You know, you can say things about 12 or 13-year-olds and up, and you can argue they should be tried or treated as adults. So there, you know, but not 6. There's different forces at work here, different questions. I guess the most important one is what's going on here. In the last 10 years, the last decade, juvenile crime, the really young, has increased by 300%. 300%. And this is so horrible that I'm not even sure how to deal with it. I'm not sure that you can discuss the possibility of a 6-year-old on trial for, in effect, his little life, or the rest of it, or to be cooped up for life? A 6-year-old. My son is 15. And I'm trying to remember, and I think I do, that at 6 he would not have known, or maybe he would have. I'm just, the whole thing is mind-boggling and sad. It is a sad state in America when we have to have this discussion. 6-year-olds. Possibly charged with premeditated murder. So, you're probably as hard put to comment on this as I am. Do you put a child this age on trial for his life, in effect? Oh, not the death penalty, but maybe jail for life? The arguments really are different from 11, 12, 13, on up. The arguments may be made, I think, logically, that these children do know right from wrong, clearly, and should not be tried, or should be tried, rather, as adults. But boy, oh boy, 6 years old, what do you do about that? More militia-type trouble in Georgia. In Georgia, the feds yesterday busted the ATF of what they call a rural Georgia pipe bomb factory. Pipe bomb factory. 2 men who claim they were preparing to defend themselves were busily making bombs that they say they needed because of their hatred of our government. One of the men, Robert Starr, describes himself as the commander of a militia group in Georgia. Now, so far, if there's anything good about this story, it's that it doesn't come from Montana. He is charged with William McCraney Jr. and an unspecified number of others who say that they were going to bury the bombs and not immediately use them, but hold them against one day when they would be at war, I guess, with the government. The BATF was tipped off by an informant. Everybody, of course, worried about the Olympic Games, because this was just 75 miles from Atlanta. They say there is no connection. The self-styled militia commander said the bombs would be used to defend their rights against the invasion of the government. The invasion of the government. So here we are again. They were the commander in civilian clothes and the other fellow in militia-type fatigues, military-type fatigues. And so here we are again, a second sort of sad chapter for America. This growing a potential collision between the government and militia groups or militia wannabes or radicals. And these guys were making bombs, wrapping them up as one would a gun in cloth to preserve them. They're going to bury the bombs. That was their big project. And they were arrested on their big bomb finalizing day. They were going to finalize bombs and bury them and then, I guess, dig them up as needed. So, here we go again. The guns in South Lebanon quieted for the moment. A ceasefire agreed to, mainly one that will protect civilians from both sides. No more shooting near civilians, that sort of thing. It leaves open, though, an area in South Lebanon where the Hezbollah and Israel can, if they wish, continue to go at it. Big controversy on the minimum wage. Going to be a big fight. In California, as a matter of fact, it's going to be on the ballot. They raised the minimum wage in New Jersey. The question is whether we should do it nationwide. Minimum wage stats, 63% of those receiving it women, 82% white, 41% food service industry employees. The last minimum wage hike, 1991. It is now $4.25 per hour. The president wanted to raise it to $5.15. Some Republicans initially a whole dollar an hour. I thought that was brilliant myself. And I think the minimum wage, as a matter of fact, in New Jersey, they raised it by about that amount a year ago. And they actually had a slight increase in jobs. And as a general rule, ideologically, I am opposed to the minimum wage at all. I don't even think we really need it. However, politically, it seems to me, the Republicans really had something going for them. They were going to outdo the president. I think it's been long enough, 1991. A $1 hike probably would not lose too many jobs. I don't think it would. There are some who say it would, but I don't think so. I think the economy could sustain it without a lot of McDonald's and things like that going belly up. I don't think that would happen. It could be sustained. And I think politically, perceptually, the Republicans had a brilliant idea, in effect, pulling the rug out from under the president by offering a little bit more than the president was ready to offer, $1 all at once, as opposed to the president's, 90 cents over 2 years. So I sort of feel that that reasonably it could have been raised. There is an interesting story in the news if you like animals the way I like animals, and I do. I love animals, as you know. This one involving a dog. I'm not a dog owner. But try and imagine this. Whole thing sounds like a fairy tale. A dog named Coconut Harry fell overboard, paddled the rough Atlantic for miles and miles, wound up on the Isle of Monkeys. Little guy's a golden retriever. And the story appears to be true. It began when the dog's owner, about 20 miles north of Key West on the overseas highway, was out April 14th celebrating her 49th birthday aboard her trawler with a friend, and Coconut Harry had been on the bow, looking out at the water as usual, but was put in the cabin when the wind rose and the sea became rough. Anyway, she fell overboard. They searched till dark. They couldn't find her. This dog swam for 5 days, lost 10 pounds. 5 days in the water. Actually swam to an island. Can you imagine that? The will to live that would carry a dog to swim 5 days, something most human beings couldn't do. That's absolutely incredible to me. Well, I've got a lot more, but I would like to get to calls because obviously we're going to have Dr. Mitchell on later, and that's going to prevent some open line talk radio. Nevertheless, it will be a fascinating interview. Once again, if you have a question for Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, get it in by fax or phone, and I'll add it to the list of questions I have here. Again, one of my simplest is, was it fun? You know, walking on the moon, bouncing around. I've never had that many opportunities to really sit down with somebody that has done this and ask those kind of questions. We'll ask some more serious ones as well, but what the heck, if you're going to go to the moon, you want to know, right? I want to know. Was it fun? It must have been. Cherie in San Francisco sent this to me. A Japanese company and an American company decided to have a boat race on the Missouri River. Both teams practiced hard and long to reach their peak performance before the race. On the day of the race, the Japanese won by a mile. Afterward, the American team became very discouraged and morally depressed. The American management decided the reason for the crushing defeat just had to be found. A, quote, measurement team, end quote, made up of senior management was formed. They would investigate and recommend appropriate action. Their conclusion was the Japanese team had 8 people rowing and 1 person steering, while the Americans had 1 person rowing and 8 people steering. So American management hired a consulting company and paid them incredible amounts of money. They advised that too many people are steering the boat and not enough people are rowing. So to prevent losing to the Japanese again, the next year the rowing team's management structure was totally reorganized to 4 steering supervisors, 3 area steering superintendents, and 1 assistant superintendent steering manager. They also implemented a new performance system that would give the 1 person rowing the boat greater incentive to work harder. It was called the Rowing Team Quality First Program, with meetings, dinners, and free pens for the rower. We must give the rower empowerment and enrichments through this Quality First program. So the next year, the Japanese won by 2 miles. Absolutely humiliated, the American management laid off the rower for poor performance, halted development of a new canoe, sold the paddles, canceled all capital investments for new equipment, and they gave a high-performance award to the steering managers and distributed the money saved as bonuses to the senior execs. So there you've got it. Open lines it is to be. First-time callers, area code 702-727-1222. The wildcard lines, area code 702-727-1295, 1295. If you're calling from outside the USA, we've got an international line, and the way you get to it is get hold of the AT&T operator, or get the USA AT&T Direct Access number, call it, then call 800-893-0903, 800-893-0903. Now, if you're west of the Rockies, we've got a toll-free line at 1-800-618-8255. If you're east of the Rockies, it's 1-800-825-5033, 1-800-825-5033. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air. Hi.
Yes, Mr. Bell, how are you?
Fine.
I've got sort of a what-if for you.
All right.
What if a UFO spaceship came over your house, the aliens came out, they said they would bring you aboard, fly you off, show you all their technological secrets, all the other worlds of the universe, and their inhabitants. But the one thing was that you would not be able to survive the full journey there and back. What would you do?
Well, what good would the knowledge or the exposure to all this wonderful stuff do me if I was dead?
Well, it was, I guess what I'm trying to say is...
I mean, isn't that a good question?
Oh, yes, that is a good question, but it just, I wonder how much your curiosity would be piqued to actually find out the secrets that are out there.
Well, it's a hard choice.
I mean, obviously, I've been listening for a few months. You like me, are very intrigued by it, and I think it would...
Intrigued, yes.
It would give you something to think about.
But I mean, this death thing, it's a big hook, big problem there. Now, maybe if they threw in Shannon Doherty. Thanks for the call, sir. Have a good morning. You'd get it all, only you wouldn't live to tell about it or think about it. I'm not sure that's a good deal. Not without Shannon, anyway. All right, we're going to break here at the bottom of the hour, and we'll be right back. The night is open. Dr. Mitchell will be here at 1 a.m. Pacific time. We'll be right back.
Art Bell is taking calls on the wildcard line at 702-727-1295. That's 702-727-1295. First-time callers can reach Art Bell at 702-727-1222. 702-727-1222. Now, here again, Art Bell.
Top of the morning, everybody. Good to be here. It's the weekend. Well, almost anyway. Headed into the weekend, live overnight talk radio right here, because this radio station cares enough to have live talk radio on. Somebody just sent me something here that I've only heard about, but this is the first time I've seen it. It is an opportunity to invest, faxed by a chief from Lagos, Nigeria. And it has come to one of my listeners, and he sent me a copy of the Nigerian fax, and everything I've heard about this indicates that it is involves oil and an opportunity to lose your money. And, gee, they've even got a telephone number here in Nigeria. I wonder what you get if you call that number. I've never seen this fax. Let's see. The expansion of the pipeline network within Nigeria for crude oil and downstream products distribution and subsequent evacuation. $5 billion. Contract for turnaround maintenance of various refineries in the country. The construction of storage tanks for petroleum products depots. $90 million. Your big opportunity to invest. And I've heard from a lot of sources this is pure hogwash, and that's what the police chief of this town, thank you, Wayne, for sending this, agrees that it is. So you guys watch out if you get a fax from a chief in Nigeria offering to let you invest your money in some oil project. I would advise against it. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hi, Art.
Hello.
I got a question or two that you can ask Dr. Mitchell. One, what was the oddest thing that he didn't expect to find on the moon?
That's a good question.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure he was briefed all over the place whether things were secret or not, but
Sure.
The oddest thing, and while he was on the moon, did he ever have a sense that he was not alone? Besides other astronauts, if you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean. Somebody else just faxed me. I remember one night we had a talk about sex in space.
Oh, yeah.
He wants me to ask the good doctor about that, whether it's ever happened. And so we shall.
Okay.
And we'll ask about the oddest thing, something that he did not expect to find on the moon, too.
Great, I'll be listening.
All right, thanks for the call, and it should be interesting. Now, for those of you that are wondering, I will indeed ask him about Richard Hoagland's theories and ideas about what's on the moon, illustrated over a 5-hour period last night. But I will not press him on that. I will elicit a specific answer, and if it is no, then I'm not going to press him up against the wall on that one. But I certainly will ask him about it. How could I not? So there you have it, and we'll ask him about Roswell. We'll ask him about some of the statements he made on Dateline and the reaction to them, and a lot of other things. Most of all, believe it or not, I want to know whether walking on the moon was fun. It sure looked like fun. Can you imagine that small amount of gravity and just sort of being able to bounce about? And what would really be the kick is if you had a base on the moon and you had enclosed areas where there was oxygen, but still that very small amount of gravity. Can you imagine motivating around in something like that? Would be a blast. First-time caller line, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, I just wanted to, my name's Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
I'm from Kansas City, Missouri.
Yes.
I listen to you after I get off the night shift. I just wanted to add something about religion. I wanted to add my 2 cents.
All right.
Okay. I am no religion, but that's just because my parents couldn't decide. But I do believe in God. And one thing that I just wanted to tell our listeners that all religions have in common is morals. And, the golden rule. The basic role of life. You know, learning from our mistakes.
Sarah,
Yes.
don't you think that somebody who would not profess a faith in any specific religion could still generally operate by the golden rule?
Well, actually, the reason I don't profess a faith, as you call it, your choice of words, is because I haven't decided. And, you know, it wasn't my fault that my parents didn't have me they couldn't decide whether they should have me Catholic or Methodist. Well, then I find out, oh, hey.
Sarah?
Well, yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
That wasn't the question.
The question, well,
the question was,
still,
don't you think that somebody who does
there's
not
so many choices.
that does not profess a specific faith could still generally operate their life by the golden rule?
Sir Art.
No, I'm not Sir Art. Art is fine.
There's so many stories, and there's so many myths.
Sarah,
Yes.
could you answer the question?
Well,
What was the question? It's because you're not even listening, hon. The question is, don't you think, now be silent while I ask this.
Yes, sir.
Don't you think that somebody who is not of any specific faith could still generally operate their life by within the golden rule?
I think so.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah, and have a good morning. I do agree that a commonality of those who profess faith is an expressed morality. Whether it's always followed or not is another question. I think generally with religious people it is more true than not. However, it is not exclusive to those of faith. The golden rule, to do unto others as you would have done unto you, I think could be followed by somebody with no specific faith at all. Could certainly be followed. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Yeah, what do you think he will answer tonight when you ask him about Hoagland's enigmas?
My guess would be that he will say no.
Why would he do that? If
Why do you think he might say that?
Maybe he's still under oath with the government.
Maybe he is.
And
maybe a lot of this news is going to be broken to us slowly, not all at once.
Okay. And do you think that maybe he's still working for the government in a way that he would try to dissuade us from looking up there, even looking at what's up there?
Well, we'll find out.
Okay.
I mean, you can only judge that after you've listened to the man, right?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. All right, thank you for the call. I can't make any judgment ahead of time about that. Again, though, my guess would certainly be in the interest of consistency that he would say no, that there were not giant 20-mile, 40-mile high, whatever, glass towers on the moon. As far as I know, not one astronaut has yet admitted that fact. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Bell. How are you doing?
Fine. Where are you?
I'm in Denton, Texas, and we can barely pick you up here, but I try my damnedest every night that you're on.
I'll tell you, conditions have not been very good lately. We've been having some solar storms, and radio reception has been the pits.
It's horrible here, but I like I said, I do the best I can to get you because I feel like the things that you're doing is so important to humanity, and I don't mean to try to balloon it, but it just is. But Art, I wanted to ask you, have you been approached or called by any government officials about your latest findings? nary
a one.
Not one.
Not one.
Well, Art,
but that'd probably be a very poor idea because, for all the joking around I do, unless, there's only one situation in which I can't tell you how I would answer. If the government came to me and said and proved to my satisfaction that there was a serious national security issue at risk, then I would have to think very hard about it. But otherwise, if the government came to me with some weak sister excuse about why I should have to do either this or that, I'd blow it out on the air, and they know it.
Okay.
So
Art,
they wouldn't do it.
Your time is limited with each caller, so I wanted to say I've been doing research here in the Denton Chronicle, And I have found so many reports of UFO sightings that were happening all over the United States prior to the Roswell accident, and also that they brought in 100 B-29s from Japan a week after Roswell. There is a map in the Denton Chronicle of a Roswell, a B-29 leaving Roswell and going to Missouri, and they all went to Alaska. There was a report of a downed B-29 in Shreveport, Louisiana, and 4 bodies were missing, Art Bell. And I'm serious. I can send these to you, and I'll back it up, and I'm going to do it next week, okay?
By all means.
I've got your P.O. box, and I'm going to do it. Thank you, Art Bell.
I'll look forward to it. Take care. Thank you. The season is really here. As a matter of fact, I woke up tonight, and I'm not subject to allergies, but I woke up with a big sneezing jag. You know, with like 5 or 6 sneezes in a row. It's not a cold. It's some form of hay fever. Runny nose, watery eyes, fits of coughing and sneezing. I fit in that latter category. I've got an answer for all of that. Simulasan. That's right, Simulasan. It is a strange-sounding name, but it is Switzerland's, hear this, most popular allergy treatment. And here's the best part. It's not only very effective, but it's all natural, so there's no side effects, no drug interactions, safe for children. Simulasan is actually 3 products in one. It's eye drops that do not sting and burn, can be used with any contact lenses. Then there's non-addictive nasal spray. And that's good because a lot of those are very addictive, or those nose sticks. Finally, there's a natural oral medication, a few drops under the tongue, and allergies are kept under control, actually fighting them off before they take hold or become a trigger for something like asthma. And it does all of this without causing drowsiness. No wonder it's so popular in Switzerland. Several people at our network have used it to great effect. If I keep sneezing like this, I'll be using it. To order 24 hours a day, call, it's $29.95 plus shipping and handling. But that's an incredibly inexpensive price for a season free of all this junk. Call Simulasan at 1-800-294-5885. 1-800-294-5885. If you suffer pain, small pains mostly, joint pain, aches, that sort of thing, there's finally an answer that doesn't involve taking aspirin by mouth. It is Loprina. And Loprina is liquid aspirin. And I'm sorry to say I have too much reason to know it works very well. I bent my thumb backward. Ooh, don't ever do that. And then my cat finished me off. So for several days, I was using Loprina constantly almost. And so I know, I can tell you it works. You just spray it on and rub it in a little bit, and the relief is immediate. Not something you have to wonder about. And it's topical because you're putting it right to the area, and you don't have to swallow the aspirin, and therefore, if you're aspirin sensitive, no more burning little feeling in the stomach. Good idea, huh? Of course it's a good idea. Health Naturally has it, and you can ask them and get it at even a better price. The number to call, 1-800-308-4565. That's 1-800-308-4565. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi. Hello, hello. Going once, twice, 3 times, gone. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Howdy.
Do the wild thing at 702-727-1295. First of all, we can't take your last name.
Oh.
Sorry about that. First names only, and tell us where you're calling from.
Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City, okay.
Yeah. I was wondering, you got anything back about your,
No, I'll let you know when I do.
Oh, all right. I was just curious. I listen to you every night, but,
No, it's, I will tell you this much, all right? The materials have gone off to be tested. The materials have been transported to the location where they're being tested. And that's all I'm going to say on the subject. I'm not going to say where or who or anything else until we have some results. But the materials are there. First-time caller line, you're on the air. Hi.
Oh,
Hello.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Calling from Cocoa, San Diego.
Okay.
And it's good to talk to you, Art. What's really been bothering me, you know when Clinton vetoed the partial birth abortion ban?
Yes, a bill, yes.
The bill, yeah. Well, we all know what an atrocious procedure it is. You know, the baby's partially delivered and then the...
Yes, and then scissors and the brains are sucked out. It's horrible, yeah.
It really is. Now, that's not bad enough. You know, the ban, it passes through both houses, goes to the president, and he vetoes it, saying that it did not allow for the health of the mother. Now,
that's right.
Granted, the ban already allowed for the life of the mother to be endangered, that the procedure could still be performed.
Yes, I'm familiar with how this all came down, yes.
Okay, and what really bothers me is that health is defined so broadly by the Supreme Court that it could even mean the mother's depression, okay, that this perfectly healthy baby could still be killed in this manner. And my question is, if it's partially delivered to this point, why can't it just be given up for abortion? I mean,
you mean
given up
adoption?
for, adoption, excuse me.
All right, thank you very much. Well, the answer is it could be. The answer is it could be. But the latter is done in the name of, the former rather, done in the name of choice. And in my opinion, it's carrying choice too far. I believe in the life of the mother because then you have a choice. I mean, it's a life versus a life. Hardly any contest there, kind of an, excuse the expression, no-brainer. That's gross. It is, though, not something you have to think very hard about. Done for lesser reasons, the answers don't come so easily, do they? Wildcard line, you're on the air.
Hello, Art.
Hello.
Hi, it's Mike in San Diego.
Hi, Mike.
How are you doing?
Fine.
Good. So I just wanted to call and say hello and mention we're really looking forward to the big GOP convention out here.
Oh, yes.
In August. That's going to be a big event. And I also wanted to ask, have you seen the first of the dirty political commercials yet on the tube?
No.
I saw one just the other day for the first time. It was obviously for Clinton. And they showed a couple clips of Dole and Gingrich. And they mentioned about 3 or 4 points, one about gun control. They go, the commentator says something to the effect of, and of course, Mr. Clinton took more guns off the street. Dole and Gingrich voted no. Then they move on to another point, and of course, they voted no. I mean, all these things that are just ridiculous. It's really sad to see it.
Well, I can't get too excited about the race just yet, and I don't know whether I'm going to be until it gets very close to it. It's kind of a boring race right now, and frankly, I don't think Bob Dole has much of a chance the way I see it at this moment.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It is kind of unfortunate, but anyway, I'm keeping my fingers crossed for some sort of a new...
miracle?
A new miracle about Whitewater or something.
All right, thank you. In other words, the only way to beat Clinton, put another way, that gentleman's phrase, put another way, the only way to beat Bill Clinton is for Bill Clinton to beat himself. And that's probably true. It's going to be, unless there is a political miracle, a very boring race, and I'm afraid Bob Dole is going to lose, and we're going to have Bill Clinton for 4 more years. Bob Dole has a very big challenge in front of him, very, very daunting. Without Colin Powell, nobody's numbers say it can be done. And I'm open to any discussion of it, but I frankly, at this stage, I don't think the public is particularly engaged in the presidential race. There are a lot of talk programs that spend all of their hours talking about it. I don't know how they can do that. My take on it at this point is that Bob Dole, obviously, if the election were held today, could not possibly win. Not possibly. And it's going to be a walk-away for President Clinton. Now, that's today's perspective. It doesn't mean it's going to turn out that way. President Clinton went from 91% approval down to losing the race. The man who couldn't lose lost. So I suppose that could occur to Bill Clinton, but short of some sort of political miracle, put that one in quotes, I don't think so. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Oh, good morning. morning, Art.
Good morning.
First of all, congratulations on getting Dr. Mitchell on the show tonight.
Well, I don't have him yet, so don't put me in the position of the Chinese who launched that satellite congratulating each other before it was launched.
You're under the gun. You're under pressure here.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's very exciting. Looking forward to it.
Any questions you would like to ask?
Yeah, I was wondering if it felt like strange or weird to like fall down and catch yourself and not feel the normal pressure of falling. You know, for it not, if it wouldn't hurt as much to fall down and be easier to, stop yourself.
Well, I think a lot of that would depend on whether you tore your spacesuit.
Well, tearing the spacesuit, that'd be
tragic.
A whole different story, yeah. And I wonder if you ever thought about not being able to get back off the moon.
I'll bet he thought about that a lot.
Yeah.
I bet they all did. Thank you very much. Yes, that's a good question, isn't it? Not being able to get back to the LEM, or having that famous, Houston, we've got a problem, no, retrofire, there'll be no liftoff from the moon for this group. I wonder what they would have done. And I'm sure that horrible possibilities like that constantly ran through the minds of those who planned these missions at NASA. I don't know how they would have handled all of that from a public relations point of view. It would have been horrible. Coverage of people stuck on the moon running out of food and air and everything that would keep them alive. First-time caller line, you're on the air.
Hey, Art.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going.
Well, this is Tim from Janesville, California.
Yes, sir.
The reason I called about the 6-year-old that beat up that baby.
Yes.
I'm a prison guard, and I deal with people that I personally believe that they're broken.
Broken?
They're conscienceless. It's hard to explain.
No, there was a movie that did that once.
Is that right?
And it explained that the place or the keeper of souls, the place where souls are issued, ran out. It was called The Seventh Sign with Demi Moore, and we've got soulless beings running about the planet.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've worked at several prisons where I have dealt with people like that, and I firmly believe that there are people like that that have no conception of right, wrong, or indifferent. I mean, they don't understand.
Well, the question is, I guess, why are we getting more of them? And we sure are. I mean, this kind of crime up 300% in the last decade alone. That's really serious.
Well, I as far as the kids go, I believe that the part of it with the kids is that the fact that the parents are not disciplining them at all.
All right, sir, I've got to leave it there. I think it's the Guff. Wasn't it called the Guff, where the souls are kept? No soul, no conscience. Acts like this. Who knows? Could be. We'll be right back.
Call Art Bell toll-free, west of the Rockies at 1-800-618-8255. 1-800-618-8255. East of the Rockies at 1-800-825-5033. 1-800-825-5033. This is the CBC Radio.
I went to Amarillo after tech school. And then he asks, where was I when President Kennedy was assassinated? Everybody remembers that, of course, and I was in the hospital as a worker at Lackland at the moment of the assassination. And, of course, I'll never forget that. I was, for your edification, my FSC was a 90250. I was a medic in the Air Force. All right, back to the lines. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Yeah, Art, this is Tim from Indiana.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I had a question for the astronaut.
All right.
In regards to, like, now I'm having a problem remembering. Here, I'll get it. When they were having to maneuver the spaceship to go to the moon,
yes,
were there any times in which they were flying there that they had problems with, their guidance or anything like that? Because after watching the Apollo 13, I kind of wondered how he felt, going to the moon right after that happening.
Yes, that's a very good question, and you can be sure I'll ask it. Sure. The mission after 13 must have been something of a terror. How could they know there would not be a repeat? The 13 astronauts missing it by that much, escaping by that much. How could they not be very concerned that there would be a repeat? I'm sure they were, and that is a good question. First-time caller line, you're on the air. Hi.
Good evening, actually.
Yes, actually.
Yeah, I'm calling from KSRO, Santa Rosa. I actually live in Rohnert Park, California.
Yes, ma'am.
About 50 miles north of the Bay. I'm calling because I've pretty well followed the tragedy of the 6-year-old for some time. And, there's one thing that is a question that I have never been answered. Maybe somebody knows it. Where were the parents or the caretakers of these children when this happened? It seems strange that a 1-month-old child would be left unattended, and no one heard it cry, no one heard it fall, no one heard of the assault on its little body. I find that
you said
shocking to me.
You said you've been following this very closely, so you should have those answers for us.
I've never read a thing about that, never heard a thing about that.
That makes two of us.
That's true of you too?
Yeah.
And any of these children, actually the 6-year-old or the 8-year-old, apparently had no caretakers.
Are you a parent?
I'm a parent and a grandparent both.
Okay. Well, then you remember, I too was a parent. There are times, I guess, when you're in another room, another part of the house. I mean...
Would that baby not cry? Would that baby not do... Would they not hear it thump on the floor? Would they not hear these children talking?
Maybe they covered its mouth. I mean, from what I've heard, they intended...
And these other little boys
Excuse me.
talk?
From what I heard, they intended to kill it, right? That's what they're charging the 6-year-old with. So if you're going to do that, you might cover up its little mouth, mightn't you?
Sure.
Sure.
And regarding Dr. Mitchell?
Yes.
I'm wondering if there was no cost involved, would he recommend the rest of us take a vacation on the move? What about the stress getting there and getting back? Would that be a trip to take? Would it be worth it?
Would you?
I don't think so. I don't know if being on the moon would be worth the trip going and coming.
Oh, yes, it would.
Would it?
Oh, yes.
Oh, great. I'm glad you like it.
Oh, absolutely. I'd go in a second.
Card.
I'd go in a second. Thank you very much. Sure, I'd go in a second. But that's me. Oh, you bet. Would it be worth it? A few days cooped up in a spaceship? With no gravity? Would it be worth it? Oh, hell yes. I would do it in a second. I'd do it in a second. Especially at my age. Maybe a young person would think harder about it. I don't know. I can't imagine it. There are, though, a lot of people who wouldn't even think about it. I wouldn't hesitate for a second. People risk their lives, given the odds with the record they had, for much less. And even though we're going to get Dr. Mitchell's words this morning about what it was like on the moon, I guess there are no words that would do justice to actually being there, are there? First time caller line, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, Art.
Yes.
Dale from Tacoma.
Yes, sir.
Ed Mitchell and Alan Shepard, when they were descending, their landing radar was out. And I was always curious if they were going to land without it. If you could ask them that, I'd appreciate it.
You're saying when they were headed down to the moon, their landing radar was out?
It was non-functional. It turned out to be it was just locked up. They got it working again before their limit. But it was out when they were going down, and there was a point in time when they were not supposed to land if it didn't come on. And, of course, it came on, but I was just curious if he had any insight on that.
Would you, had you been on that mission, I mean, to get that far, to be in the LEM, and then to have the landing radar fail, you're halfway down, or whatever, would you keep going? Would you say, sorry, Houston, missed that transmission?
Me? Well, I probably would have.
Would you abort the mission? You'd keep going, huh?
Well, he was in charge. Of course, Alan was the man landing it, and it was his final say. Mm-hmm. And if it was up to me, I probably would have, because you went that far. I mean, crash, who cares?
Sorry, Houston.
Yeah, right. I didn't catch that last
transmission
one.
Was jarbled.
But, I was really into it as a child and have all the tapes on that. And, in fact, I got that from Moonshot, the documentary by Slayton.
Yes.
And I was just curious. If you could ask him that, I thought it would be kind of interesting.
Okay.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'll try to get all these. Now, obviously, I'm beginning to compile quite a list of questions here. So I'll do what I can, and I have no idea for how long we have him. So we'll try and get as much of this in as we're able. First-time caller line, you're on the air. Hi.
Hello, this is Janine from Bellingham.
Hi, Janine.
Hi, I've got some insights about this 6-year-old.
All right.
I was flipping through the channels on my day off and looking at some of the morning time cartoons that are on. And there always seems to be the good guys and the bad guys and the one that comes and saves the day. And I was just really appalled at, it's okay to kill. There's always...
Janine, I don't think it was TV. How old are you, hon?
Me? I'm 33.
33, all right. When I was a child, I watched all of those tunes. I watched, especially the Roadrunner, where in one scene the Roadrunner is... actually, Wile E. Coyote is absolutely destroyed or gets smushed or something, and he's back up and bouncing around in the next scene. I watched all of that, and that didn't lead me in any sort of direction of assuming that violence was all right. I never for a second believed that.
Yeah. Well, I have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old kids, and both of them are extremely compassionate, loving children, and it wouldn't affect them. But I think a child that wasn't really brought up in a super loving home bonded with the mother at birth and really loved might become kind of disconnected from society and just kind of buy into that violent thing. I don't know. It's hard to understand, but when I saw these children's cartoons that are on, it just kind of struck me that maybe that was part of the problem.
I appreciate the call, and we'll think about that, of course. And I did think about that, and I've seen the experts endlessly talking on CNN and elsewhere, about this thing. They talk about television and about cartoon characters, but hell, I watched all that stuff, and I bet a lot of you did too. And I don't for a second believe that is the factor that could precipitate a 300% change in these kinds of crimes in a decade. I don't believe that for a second. There's something else at work here. Cartoons were always that way. Remember Tweety Bird? I mean, we could go on and on and on and on with cartoons where there was violence in 1 second, a ker smash, a kaboom, a fall off a cliff, oh, let me document the ways, and then in the next scene they're back up, unsmushed, and back at it. And the charge is, well, children see this kind of thing and they assume that they're not really doing any harm. Bull. I'm sorry to say I believe that child, my belief, knew what it was doing. The signs are that it did. And now the more that I think back on it, at even 6, I knew. Didn't you? Didn't you understand death and dying even at 6? Sure you did. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Yes, Mr. Bell.
Yes, that's true.
Hey, I was trying to get through last night to speak to Mr. Hoagland.
Would you turn your radio off for us, please?
Yeah, I sure did.
That's good.
Question for you. Now, I've heard references to Zachariah Sitchin, and he was actually the first time I'd ever read of the Cydonia region and the pyramids and other structures that are on Mars. I was wondering if you knew anything about, say, corresponding theories that Mr. Sitchin might have along with Mr. Hoagland.
Well, yes, you'd want to read a book called The 12th Planet, sir, by Zachariah Sitchin. 12th Planet. And a series of books. We'll have Zachariah Sitchin back on again. He is a very, very interesting guest. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Mr. Bell.
Mr. Caller.
My name is Phil. I'm calling from KCMO country.
Hi, Phil.
Mike Murphy country, we call it.
You bet.
Listen, may change the subject just a little bit, but I'm wondering on this Gordon Michael Scallion situation, his predictions. I haven't heard much out of him lately.
Well, he hasn't been on the air. I got a fax from Gordon's people the other day, and he's on a break. He has long periods of time where after taking or having visions, he is not well.
Oh, really?
Not truly sick, but very exhausted.
Wow.
And so he's on a break right now.
Okay.
He did predict, made a prediction on paranormal borderline regarding Phobos. And his assistant, Harold, said, I'd prefer not to comment until we get an actual script of what Gordon Michael said on paranormal borderline. So otherwise we'll be commenting in the blind. So that's where we are with that.
One more thing, if you don't mind. On his set of earthquakes that he predicted, it's 3 sets of 4?
Yes.
4 sets of 3?
3 sets of 4.
3 sets of 4. Where are we at on that?
Not complete.
No, I didn't think so. Every time I hear
You'd know, there'd be a big news bulletin, CNN breaking news, and there'd be a shot of where California used to be.
We're in the 3rd set.
You'll know, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the call. If it completes, trust me, you'll know. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Yeah, this is Steve in Portland.
Hi, Steve.
And my question for Edgar would be about what happens in the debriefing process after they come back.
You mean where they tell you what you can say and what you can't?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because it was always mysterious. They'd pick them up out of the ocean and then they'd be gone for a while.
Well, yes. I believe in the beginning they were doing quite a isolation period after they came back.
And then the other thing would be, was he anticipating finding any, great discovery on the moon, as he was going there? And then could he have told us about it if he had?
All right. Those are all fair questions. Thank you. I'll consider those. Or maybe more to the point, what did you see that you haven't told anybody about? You know what kind of answer you're going to get to that question, though, don't you? Actually, I guess I can't say that. I have no idea what kind of answer we're going to get to these questions, so I will not presume. With a little bit of luck, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, Apollo 14's Edgar Mitchell, coming up in about 37 minutes or so. You hear this music on my show just about every night, sometimes several times in one night. It's the awesome music of my favorite group, Cusco. Well, now listen, they've got a special offer only for my listeners. If you liked Puramac, you're going to love these. You get the Cusco 2000 album, plus Cusco 2002 and the best-selling album, Mystic Island, all 3 CDs for the discount price of $39.95 or $27.95 for cassettes. And listen, that includes postage. But I'm not done. Add $5 more, and Higher Octave will include 2 more CDs, sampler CDs full of music of the same genre. In other words, 5 CDs for less than the cost of 3. Call Higher Octave at 1-800-562-8283. Mention my name, Art Bell. Save up to 29% off the regular prices. Again, that number, 1-800-562-8283. Higher Octave and Cusco. All right, just a little promo here. We did a full 5 hours with Richard Hoagland last night. It was an amazing 5 hours, actually. And if you would like a copy of that program with Richard Hoagland, or you would like to order our newsletter, and let me tell you right now, we have got an issue coming up, the cutoff date of which is Sunday night, right after Dreamland. It has got some of the most definitively beautiful crop circle photographs in it that you're ever going to see in your life. The next issue is going to have Art's Parts, or the Roswell stuff, those photos in it. But this one you don't want to miss. So whether you want to order our newsletter, get a copy of the show last night, whatever, here is the number. It's 1-800-917-4278. That's 1-800-917-4278. Didn't hear the whole thing. Also, coming this week on Dreamland, Robert Ghost Wolf this Sunday, a Lakota Iroquois shaman on Native American prophecy. And so that should be most interesting. If you don't have Dreamland as of yet, contact your radio station, whoever that is, and ask politely that they try to find room to carry it. And they can do that by carrying it live or offsetting the hours. They can do it any way they like. Let's see, there's something else I'm supposed to do here, too. Mother's Day cometh. You know, it's, what, a week away? A little better than a week away? Something like that. What is today? No, it's 2 weeks away. It's almost the middle of the month, 13th, 14th, something like that, Sunday, I think. It would be a good time now to order absolutely fresh flowers for your mom, because there is a chance you will not catch my programs coming up toward Mother's Day, and you can, in fact, order right now. Just get it out of the way, get it done, and you can actually then forget it, because it'll be done. You can be sure that FedEx will be there just before Mother's Day. Flowers in hand, this giant triangular box full of miniature carnations, you can be sure they'll be there. But if you blow it off and you forget it, well, you may not hear the program again, catch the number, and then it'll be too late for you. So, look, write the number down I'm going to give you. These are miniature carnations, more than anybody's ever seen, with a card from you, your message, your name, happy birthdays, Mother's Day, Mom. Your name at the bottom, signed at the bottom, all handwritten. That's quite a bit for $42.95. Plan ahead, do it now. 1-800-562-6438. That's 1-800-562-6438. Absolutely fresh flowers. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, Art. Charles from St. Louis.
Hi, Charles. Yes.
How you doing?
Fine.
Just one little question. Well, the guy, he took my question about the debriefing period and the period of isolation. You know, how long would he be in the debriefing period?
Right.
But one other little question was about the gravity. I would like to know how did the gravity feel? Could he jump as high as he could on Earth, or?
Yeah, my question went the same way. In other words, I want to know if the whole thing was fun. And that, to me, getting up in zero or near zero gravity, particularly near zero gravity, that would be fun.
Yeah.
Jumping around.
Yeah.
Sort of like Superman.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically all.
You know what I want to know, too?
What's that?
We went to the moon, went to the moon, went to the moon. Now we haven't gone to the moon in 30 years. How come?
Yeah, that fit me.
I'd love to hear the answer to that one. Thank you very much. 30 years. We did it. We did it again and again and again. Then we just flat stopped. How come? There ought to be a good answer for that one, shouldn't there? We'll be right back.
Art Bell is taking calls on the wildcard line at 702-727-1295. That's 702-727-1295. First-time callers can reach Art Bell at 702-727-1222. 702-727-1222. Now, here again, Art Bell.
Once again, I am indeed here at the top of the hour, if all goes well, and I say if all goes well because one never knows. Dr. Edgar Mitchell is due to be here, the Apollo 14 astronaut. Guy who walked on the moon. And here's a good question from somebody out there. Art, I can imagine the gambit of emotions that one would experience as you look from the moon to your world, the one on which you experienced your childhood and life experience. Art, please ask Dr. Mitchell, what was his first emotion in question at the moment he realized out there your vision of the moon and universe from the eyes of his youth was now at his feet? Did he ever experience sadness for the people on Earth, and if so, why? Sadness for the people on Earth. I wouldn't think that would be the emotion, but we will surely ask him. West of the Rockies, you are on the air, top of the morning.
Oh, good morning, Art.
Good morning.
I lost my train of thought, I'm sorry.
Well, you never got it, sir.
Actually, I want to comment on that guy that called about a week ago. I thought that was the most hilarious thing I've ever heard in my life.
Which guy are you talking about?
The one that was calling you a demon.
Oh, yeah, that was such a good call that we've taken it and put it up on the internet on my webpage. You can actually download that call and listen to it.
Oh, you're kidding me.
The guy who thought I was a devil's toe jam, right?
I was laughing so hard I was rolling on the floor.
I know, it's a good call.
No, it was a good call. And also, I'm not sure if the American people are ready either to find out about UFOs or...
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure either. I've said this, and people take me to task for it, but I think the Brookings report is probably accurate, and that really puts me in a stinking position with the materials that I've got and the report I'm going to be getting. Assuming that it would come back anything but normal materials, you know, I'd have to sit down and think about it.
Exactly. And also, about that 6-year-old boy.
Yes.
What the heck do you do? I mean, it is a very sad thing that the 30-day-old baby is probably going to die, and I'm really sorry for that.
I know. I appreciate the call. The father and mother of the... baby, who had 3 other children. Get this, folks, according to the Associated Press, were out shopping, grocery shopping at the time of the beating. They had not taken the young Ignacio along because he had a cough. They worried the chilly evening air would make it worse. So the parents of this little baby weren't home. They left it home alone. Who the hell would leave a 30-day-old child at home alone? There's one good point. Now, so the parents of the infant were not even home at the time, and they don't say anybody was left there with the infant. So that's crazy. That's crazy. Never left my son alone for a second. Well, alone maybe in a room. That's what I speculated about earlier, but not alone in the house. Of course not. And there could be a fire. Anything could happen. So that's an amazing bit of news. Isn't it? West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Yes. All right. I'd like to ask you 2 questions for tonight. Now, what was this thing about this guy calling you a demon?
Oh, you had to hear the call.
Can you tell me about it, basically? About what the basic of the conversation was?
You already covered it.
He just called you demon and hung up?
No. He kept calling me a demon for at least 3 minutes. The devil's mouthpiece. The devil's toe jam.
What did he say before that to make him...
The man from the burning pit of hell.
Okay. And the 6-year-old boy, do you think he should get the chair?
What would that be? The high chair?
No, electric chair.
Oh, I see.
What are they gonna? Did that 30-year-old, the 30-month-old or whatever, die, or is he? What's going on with that baby?
30-day-old baby, sir. The baby is in critical condition on life support. Has been that way for now into the 6th day, so that you might know. And, of course, when they're in critical condition, it's unknown whether they're going to make it or not. Okay, Wildcard Line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Art. Dave calling from KEX Country.
Hi, Dave.
Am I to understand, Art, that you don't feel that cartoons or TV in general have any effect on children?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, you said cartoons don't, though.
No, I didn't say that.
Oh.
What I said was, I watched cartoons all my young life. How old are you, Dave?
I'm 38.
38. Did you watch cartoons when you were a kid?
I sure did.
How many murders have you committed?
You mean counting this month?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
None.
All right. Well, so the cartoons, Roadrunner and otherwise, didn't affect me. I knew they were cartoons. I understood the difference between cartoons and real life.
Okay.
I never murdered. Well, I did put a big shovel mark in the middle of my sister's nose, but I never murdered anybody, and you didn't, and I don't think the average person did. So I think it's controversial. I do think television has some effect, but I don't think it's turned our youngsters in the last decade into murderers.
Well, the reason I bring that up is because I lived with a woman who had a child who used to watch the He-Man cartoon. Are you familiar with that?
Of course.
Well, one day I caught he was 6 at the time, and he took his little brother's head and stepped on it. It's just like the cartoon. Now, I'm not saying he's going to turn into a murderer or anything like that, but I do feel with the psychological studies that where they show the adult modeling against one of those dolls that you hit and it comes right back up. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Do you honestly think that cartoons are showing any less death, dying, or smushing in the last decade than they did in decades previous?
Well, I don't remember the He-Man type of thing, those He-Man or those Wonder, whatever they are, that show actually more humans. I mean, seeing the Roadrunner and the Wile E. Coyote, I'm not saying that was any less, but I'm just saying that now they show more of like what looks like mommy and daddy on the actual TV screen that are beaten up on cartoon characters. That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. I don't rule it out. I've always thought that television does have some effect. And I've always thought that there ought to be some sort of, you hate the word censorship, but some restraint shown in the period of time during which children get home from school, a lot of them latchkey, and the later evening programming. There's kind of a window in there where they come home, open the door, shut it, grab a Coke, sit down in front of the television, and away you go. So I don't think it's the main and or only factor, but it probably has an effect. I think it has an effect. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Whoops, would have been. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Art.
Yes, sir.
This is CJ from Lathrop, California.
Hi, CJ.
I got a couple things for you. One's a what if, and the other one is having worked for the dark side of our government in past years.
You did?
Yes, I did. And the oath of silence is something taken very seriously by people who work for the dark side of the government. And though you might not say that the astronauts worked for the dark side, they truly did. They worked for the DOD.
Would that be would that apply to people who went to the dark side of the moon?
No, I just call the dark side of the government anything to do with the national security. And I termed it the dark side because there is truly a dark side to our government, and there is to every government.
Well, there is a dark side to stealth work.
Yes.
But it is in the cause of national security. That doesn't make it always dark.
I understand that.
Or at least people should understand the context of dark. National security is by nature stealth, and I guess you could say that's dark, but it's not always bad.
Well, many dark things happened. I've been working for nearly 15 years for the dark side of our government. I saw plenty of dark things.
Yeah,
but, so I understand that oath of silence thing, and I think that they're just kind of dribbling this out like you've speculated and others have speculated, and this might be a way for them to get about doing it.
Well, I don't expect Dr. Mitchell to come on this morning and say, Richard Hoagland's right. We didn't tell you about the 20-mile-high structures. We just sort of left it out at the time, and I don't expect to hear that.
Oh, right. I understand that. And that comes along with my what if. I want people to imagine this. Now, tomorrow, a UFO, a nice large one, lands at the UN, and they walk inside and they talk for 2 hours, and the whole time all the world's got TV cameras. CNN and everybody else has got their TV cameras there. What do you imagine the percentage of people that would just go absolutely bonkers and think their life is over and, the world would just be in a total uproar?
Yes.
So I think, you're right when you say you don't think that they're ready. The Brookings report is probably right.
Sure it is.
People would just literally freak. I mean, total anarchy would just take over in a matter of hours.
Well, I hate to believe that, but I'm afraid I do.
I think enough people would just literally lose it because of it. I mean, there'd be people jumping out of windows for starters, and another percentage of people would be running out and robbing banks and headed for the hills.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I want everybody to think about that. What if that happened tomorrow? What do they think would happen? All the people that they know. How many of the people do they know could handle this rationally, and some who wouldn't handle this rationally? There's enough crazy people already.
Well,
Once this happened,
yeah, it would be a mixture, and absolutely true that a lot of people would not handle it well. And it would not take a lot of people not to handle it well to cause a big problem. So there you are, and I just think that is a fact, and it leaves me in a very tough spot with regard to the materials that I have. No question about that. Art, May 7th, Paranormal Borderline, is that 9 p.m. Eastern or Western? I think it's 9. I think it's 9 o'clock here in the West. I'm pretty sure it's 9 o'clock, but I'm not positive. So check your TV guide. All right? Richard Hoagland was supposedly to team up with Sarah McLendon. What happened? Well, they did get together is what happened, and Sarah McLendon wrote an article about it. You should put your hands on that, sir. All right, back to the lines. First-time caller line. You're on the air. Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
I have something to report that I have an 8mm movie film that is in color that was taken in 1967.
Yes.
And is a view out of an airplane cockpit window.
Would you turn down your radio, please?
Okay.
Thank you. A view, an 8mm film, a view outside a airplane cockpit window? Or,
yes.
Uh-huh.
And in the film, I put it under a microscope, and I can make out an absolute elliptical-shaped object that is glowing with a very bright white light because the light is reflecting into the cockpit window. I have 12 years of experience working in technical areas, and I work now as, I guess I'm repairing computer robotics boards.
You guess?
Well, that's one of the things that I work on, among many other electronic-type things.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I have this film, and I'm kind of, worried about how to get it analyzed, and, some kind of a professional team to look at this. I acquired the film. I did not take the film.
How did you acquire?
Through a friend of a friend.
A friend of a friend.
An older lady friend of mine. She acquired the film from some friends of hers who are older gentlemen, and they turned it over to her because they wanted me to make a videotape of the film for them so they could put it on their VCR.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that. Get the film converted to video. Then you'll be able to supply copies, and you can get several first-generation copies made and get one of those analyzed without risking your original film. That's what I guess I would do. And most photographic stores can accomplish that for you. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hello, yes. Are you not speaking with a person at this time, or?
Are you a person?
Oh, yeah.
I'm speaking with you, and there is a delay. Turn your radio off, and you won't worry about it.
Oh, well, I thought you still had the lady caller on there.
Well, I have a delay, sir.
Oh,
so
okay.
Turn your radio off.
Okay, fine. Yeah, a couple quick comments here. The matter you mentioned about the telephone, well, the ringing only for so long is that I called the phone company about that, and they claimed that was that was a policy of the 1-800 the radio station. You know, that was y'all's doing, so to speak.
No, that is inaccurate.
Well, okay, good. I'm
totally,
glad
absolutely, utterly inaccurate. We have been as high in the phone company as you can get, trying to get it changed. And,
yeah, because see, that happened to me two times just tonight.
It happens to everybody, sir.
Yeah, it's a little bit
annoying.
And like I said, I called and talked, and she was vehement about it.
Well, she is wrong.
Thank you. Also, that the Unsolved Mysteries had the chupacabra goat sucker thing on again there tonight.
That's right. What'd you think?
Well, actually, I'm not. I wouldn't be surprised. With all the footage I've seen, I'm going on 40 years old here, and with all the footage I've seen, and this and that with the Yeti, the Sasquatch, I have the plesiosaur theory of the Loch Ness, the giant squids, etc. I have no problem with that. We got things far beyond to be concerned about that. But the new movie coming out, matter of fact, you mentioned, someone had asked you a while back your favorite science fiction movies. I'm sure you have seen The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951.
Long ago.
Yes.
Michael Rennie, wasn't it?
Yes, indeed. Excellent actor. Wish I could have met that fella. Now, the new movie coming up, this Independence Day.
Yes.
Any sort of first-hand information, anything that the general public doesn't have any knowledge of?
Yes, everything you're going to see in Independence Day, sir, is absolutely true.
Oh, let's see. Well, okay, yeah, matter of fact, a couple of questions there for the Dr. Mitchell there, if he comes on here.
Yes, let's try that.
Is it the Nazca Plain in Peru? That seems rather obvious.
The what?
The Nazca Plain in Peru, with all the lines and the...
Oh, yes.
And then now Tunguska, matter of fact, I didn't get a chance to ask Mr. Hoagland last night. This is so messed up. Golly, it's just... in Siberia.
The explosion.
Supposedly it was a Tesla experiment that was off by a couple of degrees, so to speak, or...
Well, all right, thank you. That's all very controversial. Was it something from elsewhere that slammed in? Was it a Tesla experiment gone wild? Nobody knows. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi, Art. This is Mike from Longmont, Colorado.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'd like to talk to you about the Brookings Report.
Okay.
I have a problem with your view in that we wouldn't be able to handle it, or at least the majority of people in the United States wouldn't be able to handle it.
Well, I didn't say that they couldn't. I said some people clearly would not be able to handle it. Do you challenge that?
Well, I believe that they wouldn't, but I have a bigger problem with the fact that we're dealing with a deception as it is, and I see that as a larger problem. If we start getting to some truth about what's out there and about how everything works, it might end up being more beneficial than non-beneficial. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. There's a lot of people who feel that way. But the question is not about them. The question is about admittedly, the minority, but still a large number of people, numerically, who would go batsoid.
I think that's definitely possible, but I think that there'd be a lot of ways for
okay,
people
sir, that is definitely the worry. Now, we've got to break it off there. Headed toward the top of the hour, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, next, maybe.
Call Art Bell toll-free, west of the Rockies at 1-800-618-8255. 1-800-618-8255. East of the Rockies at 1-800-825-5033. 1-800-825-5033. This is the CBC Radio Network.
It is indeed. Good morning, everybody. Dr. Edgar Mitchell, Apollo 14 astronaut, with us in a moment. One correction to the Associated Press article I had. The baby that is now in critical condition was beaten by the 6-year-old was not at home alone, as a matter of fact. There was a babysitter there, according to late news. Not the best supervision, but not left alone. All right, now we go to Florida, and that's where Dr. Edgar Mitchell is. Dr. Mitchell, welcome to the program.
Well, good morning, Art. Thank
you. It is really an honor to have you on the show.
Well, thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
Good. I've got a million questions, which probably are dumb. Everybody asks astronauts these questions, but I've got to do it because I've never heard the answers.
Well, give me the first 100,000 or so.
Yeah, all right. How did you get picked to be in the Apollo program? I guess that's a good place to begin.
Well, I kind of made it my business from 1957 on, after Sputnik went up. I had to recognize that humans are probably right behind robot spacecraft, and I wanted to go along, so I started working on it, on my credentials, in 1957, even before there were manned flight, much more than a dream. It took me 9 years, adding to my test pilot credentials, getting a PhD from MIT, and being involved in space development with the military.
So it's sort of like you had a list, or you knew what the right stuff was going to be or was going to require, and you began fulfilling it.
That's kind of right. I didn't quite exactly know, but I just kept adding credentials and qualifications and hoping that sooner or later they couldn't ignore me any longer, which turned out to be true by 1966.
All right. Well, most people today, because all of this occurred so long ago, have forgotten a lot about it. Mm-hmm. What reminded them about it all was Apollo 13.
That's true.
Of course. And would you say, to the best of your knowledge, that Apollo 13, minus a little bit of dramatic license, was fairly correct?
Oh, yes. There was very little dramatic license in the movie Apollo 13. They did a marvelous job of keeping it right on track, and very, very true to actually what happened.
All right. Bearing that in mind, and with a lot of people who've seen 13, the movie, going on 14 must have been a bit of a, even though I'm sure by then you were all locked into it and ready, still, in the back of your mind, with Apollo 13 just having occurred, you must have worried that a similar thing could have occurred.
On the contrary, took the position, hey, we've really gone over the spacecraft with a fine-tooth comb. The likelihood of lightning striking twice in the same place is pretty small. At least it's nice consolation, whether it's true or not. Mathematically true is another matter, but it's nice consolation. The main problem was don't screw up. We really we were under the gun to fly a good mission, and so to ourselves, don't mess up, do it right.
Mm-hmm. I guess my simple little question was, and it is a simple question, when you got to the moon, when you got on the moon, was it fun?
Fun? Oh, sure.
Yeah, I mean, was there time in between everything you had to do to just, sort of feel the experience for yourself and have fun?
No, there wasn't time. Any moment that you took to do that was very brief, stolen. The clock did not permit that time. But, of course, Alan Shepard took the time to hit a golf ball.
Yes, he did.
I took the time to throw a javelin further than his golf ball. And
how far did your javelin go?
Well, both of them went out there a few yards. If we hadn't been such cumbersome, tight pressure suits, we could have done a pretty respectable job of throwing things halfway around the moon. But those pressure suits were tight and stiff and difficult to work with. They went out there a while.
Was there any chance that, should you fall in one of those, you would catch it on a rock or a jagged and tear it?
There's a possibility. We were careful with regard to that. Watched each other pretty cautiously. kept an eye on each other, worked the buddy system, and tried to make sure we didn't fall on anything really sharp. But it was a remote probability, but it was still there.
If something like that had occurred, would it be automatically fatal, or would there have been time to do a quick patch job, assuming it wasn't a giant tear, and something you'd live through?
We had ways to overcome small fissures or small holes in the suit, leaks in the suit. For short periods of time, we had a buddy system. We had a emergency oxygen supply that could hold up for very small leaks, and that's about all that we really expected to encounter. Were it a massive tear, it'd be too difficult to manage.
Did you ever have any concern, or did you give any thought to what would have occurred if the LEM had not been able to lift off from the moon? And I wonder how they could have handled that from a PR point of view at Houston.
Well, we had about 5 ways to back up the engine ignition and the start sequence. Fortunately, we didn't have to use any of them, but we had several different backups. The last of which was to run a jumper cable from the descent stage through the hatch into the ascent stage circuit breaker panel. So we always wondered what would happen when that cable went snaking out through the front door as we lifted off, but, but we never had to use that.
So there wasn't much thought that anything tragic would
Well,
happen.
there was a lot of prior thought of backup, of creating backups for things that could go wrong. But once you've done that, you've done all you can do.
We went to the moon and went to the moon and went to the moon, and now we haven't gone to the moon, and it's been 30 years, and a lot of people, and I'm one of them, wonder about that. Why haven't we been back? Why haven't men been back?
The public hasn't supported it financially. That's the reason we cut off the last 3 flights, is the public started saying, ho-hum, so what have you done for us today? Why go back to the moon? Scientifically, there is plenty of reason to go back, and eventually we will. But we have to garner the public will, public and political will, and finances to do it. It will happen sooner or later.
Would it be so? How much the Saturn V? That's what you rode on top of, isn't it? That was quite an incredible booster. How much thrust did that develop?
A little over 7 million pounds, about 7.3 million pounds.
7.3 million pounds. It's hard to imagine what it's like sitting on top of a giant firecracker, isn't it?
Yeah, I compare it to the vertical subway ride, kind of shaking, rattling, and rolling as those gimbals move the vector around, and with acceleration, you're getting pushed back in the seat ever more firmly until you reach first stage cutoff of a minute or so. About a minute and 20 seconds into the flight.
How many Gs at that point?
Not too many, a little over 4. The liftoff is relatively light. It's the emergency reentry that pushes you up to high G loads, potentially up to 16 and a half G. We practice that, and it's not a comfortable feeling to practice emergency aborts.
What is human endurance for Gs, roughly?
Depends on how you're taking it. Transverse G's through the body, like we were taking it, you're going to start to black out above 16 if you sustain it too long. But you can take a jerk or short impulses higher than that. You may tear a few blood vessels, but you'll survive it. I don't really know what the absolute limit is. They tested that out in the White Sands by Colonel Harold Stapp. Tested out in the White Sands back in the 60s with rocket sleds that they brought to a screeching halt up to 20 or 30 Gs, as I recall.
Wow.
And yeah, they sustained a bit of damage sometimes doing that.
What would you, was there any surprise for you on the moon? Was there anything you found on the moon that you didn't expect to find?
Well, not along the lines you're talking about. The only big surprise was it was much more difficult to navigate than we thought, because it looks like a fairly smooth surface where we landed, relatively smooth, but it turns out the undulations of the crater impacts are like sand dunes, and they're much higher than you think they are. So, whereas we thought we could navigate across the surface very, very precisely within inches if we wanted to, it turns out you couldn't do that because you lose sight of your landmarks. Just like walking through the desert with sand dunes, you come over one sand dune, and lo and behold, there's another one, and you can't quite see what's over the next one.
Would that have blocked your, in other words, with that kind of geography, which is hillier than you thought, would that have blocked your view, or did you have a great view to the moon's horizon?
Well, we had great views. What I'm talking about is micro-navigation here.
Oh, I see, okay.
Down to within feet or so. We knew where we were within 10, 15 yards, but not within 10 or 15 feet sometimes, like the geologist wanted us to know.
A lot of people thought the early Apollo missions might, when the LEM came down, might go sinking into the moon dust, and there was going to be a great deal of moon dust there. And a lot of people thought that.
Well, there was a great deal of moon dust. It just turned out it was it compacted very nicely, and the big pads that we had on the bottom of the struts cushioned it very nicely, and we didn't sink in.
All right, let me try this one on you. It's a fax. I have several. Regarding your appearance on Dateline, NBC's Dateline, a few minutes into the interview, if you had missed it, you would have missed the commentator's remark that Dr. Mitchell returned from the moon with a couple of secrets. So if he's unable or unwilling to corroborate Richard Hoagland's work, and we'll get to that later, I'd like to know if it's true that there are some secrets. Is there anything, any secret that you learned that you still are unable to discuss?
Absolutely not. No, the secrets he was referring to was a little teaser for the fact that I did that ESP experiment, telepathy experiment. But I have no classified information or information I can't talk about. Talked about everything I know to talk about regarding flight.
Of course, if you had classified information that you couldn't talk about, then you obviously couldn't talk about it, right? So.
No, but yes, that is true, except for the fact I deny that that's the case. NASA, we were a totally open program. We had nothing to hide. We were to tell the world what we found, and as far as whatever we saw, we can talk about it.
All right, I don't shy away from things. Here's another fax. It says, don't ask this directly. You may not be able to broach the subject without causing some tension between you and your guest. Edgar Mitchell's company, this fax says, has been and is still funded by the CIA.
Absolutely untrue.
Absolutely untrue.
No, if you recall, back in the early 70s, I did work with at Stanford Research Institute with Harold Putoff and Russell Targ and Uri Geller and all that. And I was invited to brief the CIA on our results, which I did. George Bush was head of the CIA at that time. And subsequently, a great deal of work was done by CIA on psychic work, and very successfully, because the Soviets were doing it at that time as well in the Brezhnev area, very successfully. And as a matter of fact, much of that work has just been declassified and released to the public within the last few months.
It's true.
Harold Putoff has written, and Russell Targ both have written several papers just this year, after 20-some years of secrecy, about all of that work. And it was very successful work and very exciting. But as far as funding my company and any of my efforts, no, I've never had one penny of CIA funding.
Okay. You did conduct an ESP experiment. It is now known. What were the results of that experiment? What did you do?
Well, the standard sort of test that had been done in the laboratory by J.B. Ryan and other people for 30 years or more. I just simply conducted it in that environment. And I can only quote the results statistically because that's the way it was set up. The probability that chance could have produced our results was 1 in 3,000.
1 in 3,000.
So it was statistically a significant test.
So you had arranged, I guess, with somebody on Earth to be receiving, and you were going to 4 people, and you were going to send a message Mid-flight?
No, I did it 4 different times. Planned to do it more than that, but had time to do it 4 different times during my rest period. It took about 7 minutes each time to organize the standard Zener symbols in accordance with random numbers selected from a random number table and copied onto my knee pad.
Mm-hmm.
And I organized the symbols according to random orientation of the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then simply thought about each symbol in turn for 15 seconds.
And the result was that it would have been 1 in 3,000. It could have been...
That chance could have produced that result.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was very significant. It was quite in keeping with what scientists had found in the laboratory for 30 years or more.
Did NASA know you were going to do that?
No, they did not.
Had they known, would they have been happy?
Not particularly. No.
How did you decide to concoct that experiment?
Well, as I tell in my book that's coming out, I had been in discussion with some medical people, as a matter of fact, who were very good scientists and who were frustrated with the establishment's lack of interest in these human capabilities. And it seemed like too good an opportunity to pass up because no one had ever been able to conduct an experiment over those distances. Now, it was a simple experiment. It didn't show a lot because one set of experiments is never enough. But it was indicative, and the only problem was that it got broken to the press before we were ready to and before we had chance to analyze the results and do it in a thoroughly scientific, proper way.
Care to say how it got out?
One of our persons involved in it, who happened to have been a professional psychic, couldn't contain himself, got too excited, and leaked it to the press.
I see. All right, let me jump to something else here. You, on Dateline, virtually suggested that you think, your opinion, it's always safe to say that, is that there was really perhaps a crash in 1947 in Roswell, and that it has been covered up. Is that roughly accurate?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Let me give a little background. I lived in Roswell at the time, but I was too young, of course, to know much about that incident, although it was not too far from my parents' ranch. Yeah, interestingly enough, and also as I point out in my book, Robert Goddard lived right down the road from where I grew up in Roswell. Walked past his house on the way to school every day. So the Roswell area is of interest to me. I remember that incident vaguely, remember the headlines, and didn't think much about it at the time when it was said, well, it's just a weather balloon. But the subsequent events and the people who have come forth in later years saying that they were told to keep quiet, but they don't want to keep quiet anymore, and the many, many investigations of it suggest that there's really more to it than has been told.
I think there's in the order of about 130 witnesses.
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
There's a lot of people, yes.
And many of them now in later stage of their life saying, we really don't want to go to our grave with this misinformation out.
There are a lot of people who would say the same thing about you. In other words, that you wouldn't want to go to your grave with secrets about the moon. Now, I'm not going to beat this to death, but I'm going to ask you.
Please do. Ask it directly.
Richard Hoagland claims that there are great glass structures on the moon, and he presents photographs, including one, I might add, of you on the moon, in which he claims reflections in your visor are showing things that were in front of you that you have not admitted were there.
Well, I will refer, the kindest thing that can be said is what the Washington Post said, green cheese and bologna. It simply is not true.
Simply not true?
It's pseudoscience. It's just nonsense. Alan Bean, I think, gave a quick comment, a proper comment. I happened to be out of pocket at the time this press conference took place a month ago. But Alan Bean's comment is discovered such a thing, we would have been totally delighted to reveal it to the public. And he was also, in tongue-in-cheek, said, I would love to have gone to collect the Nobel Prize for having such a discovery. No, there simply was nothing like that.
All right, Doctor, stay right there. Take a break. It'll be about 4 or 5 minutes. We'll be back with more. Apollo 14 astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell is our guest, and he's written a book. Get a pencil, get a paper, because he's going to offer you an opportunity to get an autographed copy of his book, dedicated autographed copy. You'll never get that chance again. We'll be right back.
Art Bell is taking calls on the wildcard line at 702-727-1295. That's 702-727-1295. First-time callers can reach Art Bell at 702-727-1222. 702-727-1222. Now, here again, Art Bell.
Once again, here I am. Good morning, everybody. Back to Apollo 14 astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell in a moment. All right, back now to Florida, and my guest, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, Apollo 14 astronaut. Doctor, this question does not relate to you because of the nature of your crew on Apollo 14, so don't take it that way, but one day, if America is to ever, or any nation on this globe, I guess, is ever to launch a spacecraft to elsewhere, truly to elsewhere, beyond our system, in what will be a very long space flight, there may have to be generations, literally, of people to accomplish that fact, unless we can start moving a lot faster than light. Toward that end, I would think that NASA would have, but wouldn't talk about, a great interest in whether it would be possible to procreate in space, or the nature of procreation, and that leads to whether there's ever been sex in space. And we talked about that one night, and you seem like person to ask. Do you think there has been?
I can't answer that from definitive knowledge.
I understand.
But sooner or later there's going to be. There may very well have been, but I don't know of any official experiments for that.
There may be
just an extension of what aviators always talked about, the mile-high club. I mean, you're just getting up there 100 miles high. That's all.
I think it would be irresistible, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And there must be a file in the back of somebody's file drawer about that. I mean, it is, at the same time, an interesting question, a fun question, and a question that is very serious, or could potentially be very serious.
Well, we certainly need to consider it because, as you point out, long-distance space flight it can take years and years, even though, by the way, as a matter of interest, there's a lot of work going on at the moment to learn to modify the basic characteristics of local space in order to change the speed of light. So locally, one could exceed the speed of light.
Wait a minute.
Not really exceed the speed of light, but it would appear that one is exceeding the speed of light.
Is this the theory that embraces virtually folding space so that you, in effect, jump from point to point?
No, that is the wormholes or tunneling approach. No, this goes right to the very definition of what is the speed of light, and it's the electrical and magnetic It's associated with the electric and magnetic permeability of the medium. And if you can modify that, then you could modify the apparent speed of light. But it's very far out. There's just a few papers been written on it, and it's being looked at this point. But it holds some promise from a scientific point of view. Very, very hard-nosed approach to it.
All right. One of the things that Richard Hoagland may not be so far out on, and that you may wish to comment on, is he talks about a new type of physics that seems to sound a lot like what Tesla worked on that seems to relate to something you've talked about, this zero-point energy.
Yeah. Well, let's not give Hoagland credit for that. It's closer, much closer to Tesla's work, but a number of physicists, including Hal Puthoff, whom I'm very close to, Tom Beard, and others have been working with zero-point field concepts, and what I was just discussing comes out of zero-point field work. That the zero-point field is the underlying field of quantum fluctuations that supports all matter. And in space, you'd call it why am I blocking? It's space energy.
It's energy that's all around us.
All around us, everywhere. And it is the fundamental fluctuation that's left over if you were to reduce space to, space is 0 degrees Celsius. It's the quantum fluctuations that remain at 0 degrees Celsius. Or you can also say it's the source of the Big Bang. It was there, and the Big Bang arose out of the zero-point field.
Does it seem likely to you, Doctor, that that the Big Bang is the correct theory?
Well, all the evidence, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger the more you look at it, that there's something like the Big Bang. The problem is not with the Big Bang itself. It's with what happens in the first few nanoseconds of the event and defining precisely what happens at each instance. And they're narrowing in on that, but something close to the way that the current standard description of the Big Bang did take place.
If it's the Big Bang or some modification of the Big Bang, then doesn't it follow that if Roswell really occurred, if there really was a crash at Roswell, or there have been others, or there are others to visit, that any materials gathered would likely, frankly, be very much like the materials we have here on Earth? In other words, all materials sourced from a common point.
In my own book, I discuss this at considerable length. What really comes out of it is that the Big Bang tells us that all matter is interconnected in some way. And this comes out of an experiment only 12 years ago called the aspect experiment, or more formally Bell's theorem, which has been tested and proven to be correct, that matter, once in connection or correlated with each other, remains correlated in some sense. And I trace this up to being responsible for what we experience as our inner experience. Non-locality is the correct term. And we experience our ESP, our intuition, our creativity, as a result of that very fundamental physical relationship that exists in nature. And it's always existed in nature, and it's responsible for us having our inner experience the way we have them.
Going to space, going to the moon, was it at some level a very spiritual experience?
And this was what got all of this going, as far as I'm concerned. It was the perception in looking at the cosmos, seeing the stars, seeing the galaxies, seeing the galactic clusters, the profusion of billions and billions and billions of stellar objects, with this tiny little Earth set in the midst of it, and perceiving that the molecules of my body, of that spacecraft we were in, of each other, of everything around us, were all manufactured in those ancient stars, and that our story about ourselves from science was incomplete, and our cosmology about how we came to be from our cultural traditions and our religions was archaic, that we needed a new story. And that new story was, what is it that makes us conscious? Why is it that we're aware beings like we are? And the answer to that question is centered around what I have been doing for the last 25 years, trying to find what's going on here. Our answers are not complete, but I think after 25 years of working at it, we're getting pretty close to a good answer. And it does involve a zero-point field. It does involve quantum physics. It does involve spiritual experience, mystical experience, parapsychological functioning. All of those things have to be satisfactorily answered if we're to know what it is we are.
Do you think it would be more devastating to learn there are others of greater technical capability, or more devastating to learn there are not?
Oh, more devastating to know there are not. I think it's absolutely wonderful to know, you first start with the idea, this universe is full of life. It's full of intelligent life. The fact that some of it might be a little bit more advanced or happened a little earlier than our civilization seems natural. If life is throughout the universe, which is quite a different concept than we held 25 or 30 years ago, but now I think that is the case. And if the universe is approximately 15 billion years old or so, give or take a few, it would not be strange that maybe a civilization could be a few million or even a billion or so years older than we are.
Do you think we're ready to know that now?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, surely many are, and I would be certain you would be, and I would be. But there was the Brookings report that suggested a great many people in our society would not be ready.
I think that's probably true, but not nearly like it was 25 years ago. A recent study done by my own institute demonstrates that has broken the demographics down into three different groups called the traditionalists, the moderns, and the postmoderns. And the postmoderns, another name for them is called cultural creatives, which is the group like you and I are that are looking for new answers, looking for where the future is, not afraid of these ideas. That group has changed from 2% to 24% in the last 20 years, and is equal in size. In the United States, we're talking about the U.S. demographics, equal in size to the traditionalists and the moderns, or the moderns would be your corporate people, your materialist scientists, the yuppie group, and so forth. And the cultural creators would be the greens, the environmentally sensitive people looking to the future. All those groups are now roughly the same size, with the cultural creatives increasing and the others decreasing.
All right, look, you've got a book, and I want to plug it for you. It's called The Way of the Explorer. Can you give us, I'll tell everybody how to get the book and stuff in a moment, but can you give us an idea of what The Way of the Explorer tells us?
I talk a bit about the space experience, of course, how I got into all of that, but most of the book and this story of looking at the universe and being awestruck by what I was experiencing, but most of it is the research of the last 25 years going into these various topics: the mystical experience, the parapsychological experience, the studying consciousness, how does it relate to our psychology, to our religion, to our mystical experience, to our science, and giving my thoughts on it in my work of the last 20-some years, and coming to a new model called the dyadic model of how it relates, what does all this mean to us, and where does it seem to be taking us in the future. And I touch upon the UFO experience a bit, the notion that intelligent life is probably throughout the universe. And the real question is, have we found each other yet? All of these items are touched upon, some of them in significant detail, and it's kind of the result of my last 20-some years of research. But it's hung upon an autobiographical story, and the people that have read it say, hey, that's a pretty interesting tale you got there.
If another group of people from elsewhere had been watching us, or if we have been observed, then surely those moments when we left our planet in a significant way beyond low Earth orbit or even geosynchronous orbiting satellites, those moments would have been, I would think, of intense interest to somebody else. And so obviously the question, did you en route to the moon or back see anything at all that was anomalous?
No. I wish we had. These stories and rumors have been around for years, but I have had no experience, none on our flight, and to my knowledge, no unexplained experience on any of the flights that in this regard. And yes, in an evolutionary sense, an extraterrestrial intelligence would be very curious about the evolutionary progress that a civilization they discovered had made. So if we were watching somebody's first steps into space, we'd be intensely curious about it.
All right. This is something that had to have been covered by NASA, though you say it didn't happen. Had there been contact, had you seen another craft, met something on the moon, seen something on the moon, what was the protocol? Was there a protocol?
There was none.
In other words, you guys would just get on the mic and say, hey, Houston, guess what?
Yeah, exactly. Because the official position at that point in history, it cannot happen. This doesn't exist. So it wasn't even discussed. Had it happened, it would have been exactly that. Hey, guys, Houston, guess what's happened?
Really?
Yeah.
I would have thought there would have been at least some private, secret code word or contact or something before you just blurted out, a whole thing out publicly? No, huh?
Nope. It was considered, as far as I'm concerned, considered such a remote event that it wasn't even discussed. Now, did any of us individually think about it? Sure. And say, well, that would have been curious. That would have been nice.
All right, you've got a very, very unusual offer for everybody, and you're going to be inundated. Your book, The Way of the Explorer, you're willing to actually autograph versions for people and even dedicate them, is that correct?
Sure.
Really?
Give me their name. The name, I'll dedicate it to the person that sends the money in.
All right, it's $35, right?
Right.
A special dedicated autograph version. And they would send that $35, I suppose, check money order, that sort of thing?
Yeah, check money order, cash, whatever.
To P.O. Box 6728, 6728, Lake Worth, 2 words, Lake Worth, Florida, zip code 33461. And I'll do that again. The title of the book, The Way of the Explorer, Post Office Box 6728, Lake Worth, Florida, 33461. And you know not what you do.
Me, yeah.
Oh, you know not what you do. I'm telling you, I wrote a book. I signed autograph versions. You're going to be at this for a long, long time.
Thank you for the warning, Art.
You remember 2001?
Mm-hmm.
The obelisk,
yep.
All the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
As you reflect, Doctor, on what it all means, or how we came to be, and that's what we're all asking, do you consider that a possibility that that life here on Earth was, in effect, jump-started one way or the other, obelisk or otherwise, by folks from elsewhere?
I doubt if it's really started that way. But there's some interesting speculation by, I think it blocked his name. It just blocked his name. He wrote the 12th Planet.
Zachariah Sitchin.
Zach Sitchin.
Yes.
Thank you. That says, well, maybe they intervened along the way, and that the historical, biblical story out of Samaria could very well have been that sort of influence. I would love to have Sitchin's work either confirmed or denied by additional scholarship, because it's intriguing, and he makes a very strong case, and it's interesting stuff, and it's quite possible. But I think we probably originated much like life originated elsewhere, and the model for that is what I give in my new book as to how that could possibly happen.
Interesting.
By the way, we're also considering doing quite a bit of film work with this. I'm associated with North Tower Films out in California.
Really?
That trying to get some of these ideas down on film, because it's a modern way to do it, and into computers, into multimedia approaches. If any of your readers or our listeners are interested in that and in helping getting involved, we could get them involved with that one too.
And they would contact you at the same address?
Well, no, I've got a number for that. You contact me, but the best thing is to go directly to, if you're interested in getting involved, to North Tower Films, which is 415-868-1452.
1452.
Looking for funding. We have a very fine producer. Did you see the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Oh, yes.
Oh, it's Robert Watts as a producer.
Oh, okay.
One of the producers. He does a marvelous job. Also did the Indiana Jones series. and Star Wars trilogy. He was involved with all of that. So he's a marvelous producer that helps do some of our work, and we're trying to do some of this work around what's coming out of this new approach to science and to mystical approaches.
Well, there is certainly a lot suddenly happening. Your statements, those that are going to be interestingly made May 7th, which is the date your book is coming out, I know, by Gordon Cooper on Paranormal Borderline. Apparently some incredible statements coming. I don't have a full text, but the people that do have told me they're amazing statements. And a lot of people would say the things you have said, that Gordon Cooper will say, and others, are all leading up to something, that it's a slow sort of preparation. That's the way people feel. And that motion pictures are adding to that, Independence Day coming up, the big movie, the whole thing, that all of this is leading to a sort of crescendo of information when there'll be some big revelation. Do you think that may be?
Well, we're in an evolutionary universe. This is a major point I make in the book. We're evolving. We're continuously changing. We're continuously innovating. And what I believe is happening is that on our Earth, evolution is coming under our conscious control. And as a result, it's a new order of things. It's a new paradigm for the way we operate. In other words, the future of Earth is in our hands.
All right, Doctor, hold it right there. That's a good place to hold it. We'll be back following the news at the top of the hour. My guest is Apollo 14 astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell. Yes, we will get phone lines open. Stay right there.
Call Art Bell toll-free, west of the Rockies at 1-800-618-8255. 1-800-618-8255. East of the Rockies at 1-800-825-5033. 1-800-825-5033. This is the CBC Radio Network.
It is. I love doing that. Confusing my board ops. It's double bumping. This is Cusco. C-U-S-C-O. It is a group that I've been using actually as bumper music now for years. Can you believe it's been years? And so they came to us and said, since you're selling so many albums for us, might as well advertise on your show. And here it is, the Cusco 2000 album. Cusco 2002 and the best-selling album, Mystic Island. You get 3 CDs for $39.95 or $27.95 for cassettes. Both cases include postage to get them to your home. But listen, you include $5 more, and Higher Octave gives you 2 more CDs of music of the same genre. You like this, you like that. 5 CDs now for less than the cost of 3. You go straight to the source, Higher Octave Music. The number is 1-800-562-8283. Did you get that? 1-800-562-8283. You better hurry before this offer ends, and it will soon. Now, Dr. Edgar Mitchell in Florida. Back once again, Doctor. Gee, it's great having you here.
Oh, it's nice to talk with you. I'm enjoying it.
I always wanted to talk to somebody who went to the moon and walked on the moon, and it's exciting to me. I guess I will never, that's one thing I will never get to do. And
oh, not necessarily.
Well, that goes to the nature of my question, and that is, now we're talking about a space station with the Russians, and I guess the space program has not gone as aggressively as people like myself might have wished it to. Where should the space program be going? If you had your druthers and money wasn't a problem, what would we be doing?
Well, I think we're probably doing a lot of the right things right now. But in due course, we will do all of these things. We will go back to the moon. We will go to Mars. We will go out through the solar system. We will even go beyond the solar system in due course, sometime in the next century or so, or beyond. But right now, I think we need to get our act together here on Earth. And the space technology is absolutely marvelous for surveying the Earth, seeing how to get ourselves better organized here, get things pulled together. It's quite apparent when you look at Earth from space that this thin little biosphere that we have is rather in jeopardy. You know, we spotted the burning forest, the pollution from space. It's very easy to see, and it's causing people to be very concerned. So getting ourselves organized, recognizing who and what we are, what is our place in the cosmos, laying our plans for the future, it's an appropriate thing to do now. We've only been in space about 30-some years, and that's just nothing. And we're just really starting to understand what this environment's all about.
Does that overview, seeing the Earth that way, cause you to become an environmentalist?
It certainly causes you to ask questions in a different way. And most of the people who have been in space, I would say, are now, if not ardent environmentalists, certainly very sensitive to the environmental issues. It's very obvious from the space overview.
A lot of people have asked this, and I've always wanted to. A lot of people, Doctor, who went to space, went to the moon, or even in the early Mercury program, have had terribly troubling lives. Broken marriages, drug or alcohol problems, just generally have had trouble. But I would guess, and this is just my guess, that that's true of a lot of test pilots, too, people who live on the edge one way or the other. Is that the answer, do you think?
That's largely true. I think the NASA program itself, in the early days, we had very high family problems just because of the intensity, the dedication. This idea of going to the moon back in the 60s was so exciting, and people were so dedicated that the men and women, mostly men in those days, focused on their jobs, and families came second. And that's just not the way you keep a family together. And as a result, we had our casualties. And I think the timber of the times, as we see in American society in general at these times, that we're undergoing a transition. And it has been very difficult on the families themselves. But it's just a part of the times, I believe, and the intensity of this very marvelous program we were a part of.
I want to dispel another rumor, or it's actually more than that. Flying around on the Internet, this great new information resource we have, there are all these texts. There are a lot of texts of supposed astronaut communications intercepted by amateur radio operators during blackout times about things they saw, most amazing things.
Yep.
All baloney?
Well, I can't, without analyzing them individually, I can't say they're all baloney, but by and large, I would say, in a general statement, yeah, they're all baloney.
You and Gordon Cooper and others are probably considered within the astronaut corps to be kind of out on the edge yourself, are you not?
In some ways, yeah.
Do you expect others to come forward and say the kind of things that you've been saying?
Well, they have been. Some of them have, perhaps a little more guardedly. I've kind of made it my business for the last quite a few years to look very carefully and very critically at many of these frontier concepts to see what validity they had. And we're finding many of them have a certain amount of validity. And as they have validity, you start to find ways to bring them into the body of our knowledge. And when you're a pioneer in that way, as I try to be, yes, you invite criticism. You invite the wise nods and the shaking of heads and so forth.
Yes.
But that just goes with the territory of being an explorer.
It does. Neil Armstrong is a good example. I can't give you the exact quote, but he went to the White House, I'm sure you've heard it, and said that there are places to go and things to see that will boggle your mind or something very close to that.
Yeah, and that's quite true.
Well, that implies a knowledge, though, that he has that he can't quite fully or is not willing to quite fully articulate, sort of a tease.
It's probably more not quite able to articulate. I have had exactly that same problem of trying to explain what is the ineffable. And that has always been the problem between science and our mystical experience. Science wants things precise, well defined, and with exquisite precision. But most of our human experience doesn't have that precision. It's what we feel, it is our reaction to an environment, and there aren't words to properly describe it. If it were, then it wouldn't be such a mystical experience.
All right. Well, you have had the ultimate physical experience, the science experience of going to the moon. Do you think the ultimate answers that man seeks are going to be found in the hard sciences, or do you think that we will have to turn inward to find those answers?
Science has to modify itself, and it's all centered around one concept. It's the first-person experience. Each one of us lives in our skin. Each one of us has an inner experience. That's the only experience we have. Science is concerned with describing that from the third person or objective point of view. And unfortunately, you cannot describe all first-person point of view from the third-person point of view. That is where science breaks down. And the religious or cultural or subjective experience is all that each of us really has. That is the basis of our existence. And bringing science into understanding how to better deal with the personal, subjective, inner experience is what my studies have all been about. And that is really where the dividing line is here.
All right. Here's something that I would like to ask you about, and maybe you can answer it in a way I haven't been able to, but those of religious faith, deep religious faith, many of them view discussion of UFOs, discussion of people, or others that may be out there as of the devil. How do you react to that?
Well, I grew up in a fundamentalist tradition. I tell the story in my book about my mother, who was healed amazingly in one of these powerful things, healing moments, very much the way Jesus is supposed to have healed people. Only the interesting part was this fellow was a Buddhist shaman, and he did a pretty marvelous job of healing my mother. And she subsequently started thinking about it. I describe this in the book, by the way.
What did she suffer?
She had glaucoma and was very surely going blind. She wore thick, by the time this happened, she wore very thick Coke bottle glasses and was legally blind without them. And she was healed and could see, broke, interesting story, dropped her glasses on the floor, ground them under her shoe, and said, "Son, praise the Lord, I can see." Wow. Drove home without her glasses 300 miles by herself.
And if I were to say, the devil did that?
Well, just let me finish the story. She called me a week later and said, "Son, was this man a Christian?" And I said, "Oh, geez, no, Mother. I'm sorry, he wasn't." The next day, she had to put her glasses back on. Had to go get new glasses. Her belief system was so strong that since she couldn't accept a Buddhist shaman healing her,
I understand.
She rejected the healing. Now, interestingly enough, 10 years later when she passed away, she still hadn't had an operation because it was pretty risky back in those days. But she never went blind. Her eyesight improved over the years, the 10 years remaining to her, so that by the time she passed away, her glasses were a far weaker prescription than when this incident occurred. Very amazing story.
Amazing.
Got me started on all of this.
Oh, it did?
Well, that was one of my earliest experiences with consciousness and paranormal work, even before I ran into Uri Geller. Uri Geller came after that, and I had been studying with this shaman to see how in the world can this possibly happen. As a scientist, I wanted to understand it.
Do some of your old colleagues come to you and say, "Edgar, what are you doing?"
Yep.
They do?
Fact is, they did right after the experiment in space. Many of them came in, closed the door, looked around nervously, and said, "Tell me about it." It's been happening for 20-some years.
And so you just told them about it?
Well, I'll tell anybody that asks.
Plow forward, obviously. Yeah. There was a report last night, Doctor. Last night, scientists, it says, are now calculating that asteroid 433, known as Eros, will wander into Earth's orbit. Now, it's not a minor little asteroid. It is the size of Manhattan. Scientists are saying eventually a collision with Earth is likely, maybe not for 1 million years, but and that's a long time, but they calculate it will probably occur. Now, of course, that's far larger than the one that supposedly took out the dinosaurs.
50% probability.
50%. Half and half. Well, all right, that's a big probability.
That's a pretty good probability.
And it's also not the only asteroid out there. Now, potentially one day, something's going to come along that will do to us what was done to the dinosaurs.
Quite possibly.
That's been a recent concern of scientists, so it's a good reason to have a space program, isn't it?
Yep. And you see, this illustrates what I'm talking about in our evolutionary path. We are indeed, these events can come under our conscious control by the time that might happen. See, it's not, they say the probability is very, very low in the next 10,000 years, virtually zero. And within 10,000 years, we certainly would have the technology to divert an object like that with perhaps nuclear power or some such technology that we could invent by the time that happens. So that illustrates the fact we could bring this sort of natural disaster within our ability to pervert it or change it. We may not be able to get to earthquakes by that time, but again, we might. But certainly, it's feasible that we could divert an asteroid that was going to collide with it.
All right. There are many who have prophets, people who claim to see. You mentioned earthquakes. Gordon Michael Scallion, he's a fellow I work with, brilliant guy. Others who see great earth changes coming, great earthquakes coming. And indeed, I look at our society right now. We were dealing with a story this morning of a 6-year-old who may have or is alleged to have planned the murder of a 30-day-old child, this sort of thing. Events, socially, economically, politically, seem to be in rapid deterioration, and events appear to be quickening, geologic events as well. Have you looked at that?
Well, yes, I have, and I describe part of this in the book. I don't know that geologic events are accelerating, but certainly, well, in the sense that weather events, if they're influenced by the ozone layer, if they're influenced by the global warming, the greenhouse effect, those can be traced to human activity. And if we can trace it to human activity, then yes, it's accelerating, because every measure of human activity has a period of doubling now that is less than a human lifetime. It's the first time that's happened in all human history.
Exactly.
So it's what I'm saying, it's bringing all of these events are coming under human control, and it's because we're so numerous, our technology is so powerful, and it requires us now to rethink this whole issue of who are we, how did we get here, what's our future, where are we going, why and how.
Well, whether you believe in a creator or you believe that our Earth is reacting to what is being done to it, there are a lot of people who believe, and I may be one of them, that the Earth is, in fact, in some way, maybe perhaps just some natural way, reacting to our presence or the changes we're bringing to Earth.
Well, I happen to be one of them, too.
You too.
And that's exactly the sort of model I describe in my book, that this is an interactive, self-organizing system that we're talking about. And you push on it here, and the effect comes out over there in ways we don't really quite understand yet. And that's precisely what we must do, is to take responsibility for and understand the consequences of our behaviors, because we're doing some things that are quite reminiscent of the lemmings rushing toward the sea.
Exactly. I'm politically, in a lot of ways, conservative, but...
Me too.
But NASA has measured, in recent years, the ozone depletion. And I find it very difficult to be in denial regarding an 8 to 10% drop over North America, for example, in the size of the hole. Do you generally believe these measurements are accurate?
Absolutely. The question here is not, are the measurements accurate? The question is the meaning and the interpretation. And the evidence continues to mount that these are indeed man-made events, and that they're having a deleterious effect upon our whole ecological system. It's affecting the food chain. The measurements are showing that it's affecting the food chain clear down at the level of the newts, the frogs, the life cycle of fishes, and so forth, which eventually works its way up to affect us.
So we should be watching these indicator species, these...
Very, very carefully, and recognizing that very likely we're causing the problem.
As we take down the forest, the rainforest, and as we venture into places we've never been before, we seem to be getting more Ebolas, more mad cow diseases, more viruses that we can't explain and can't deal with. More of the same thing, Doctor?
More of the same thing. Nature has a way, and I think my model that I present in this book, it goes a long way toward helping us understand how this takes place. And essentially, nature is an evolving, intelligent organism. We don't think of it as an organism due to our scientific history. We think of it as inanimate particles.
That's right.
But the Lovelock Gaia hypothesis that everything is interconnected and interrelated, more like an organism, is probably a more productive way of thinking about nature.
Closer to the Native American model.
It's very close to the Native American model and virtually all of the early models. Yeah. And I think we will find it very productive if we continue to develop that model of the interconnectedness of things and how everything relates to each other. And the fact that these effects take place is hardly disputable. It is the meaning or the interpretation that is in question here.
All right. Oh, fascinating. Do you think, given the direction that you see and I see, we're headed toward a good outcome, or without change, a catastrophic outcome?
Well, without change, it can be very catastrophic. But that is precisely the point. With change, with human awareness, with human willingness to take responsibility for some of these actions, then the outcome can be very beneficial. What the futurist is looking for is sustainable processes. And right now, we're creating processes that are not sustainable.
All right.
A lot of my writing right now is on sustainability.
Good. Doctor, hold on. His writing is entitled The Way of the Explorer, and he's making you an offer this morning that I'm sure you can't refuse. I'm going to send off my 35. That's the name of Dr. Mitchell's book, The Way of the Explorer, and he's willing to send you an autographed, dedicated copy. An autographed copy. I would grab this up. And the way you get it is send $35, check, money order, cash, whatever. Really, you shouldn't send cash. To P.O. Box 6728. That's Post Office Box 6728. Lake Worth. That's 2 words. Lake Worth, Florida. 33461. And I'll do that one more time. The Way of the Explorer, $35. To Post Office Box 6728, Lake Worth, Florida, 33461. When we come back, we'll begin to take a few calls. And by the way, to my very, very good friend at Gateway, the answer is absolutely yes. Private message. We'll be right back.
Is taking calls on the wildcard line at 702-727-1295. That's 702-727-1295. First-time callers can reach Art Bell at 702-727-1222. 702-727-1222. Now, here again, Art Bell.
Here again I am. My guest is Apollo 14 astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell. He'll be right back. Neil Armstrong at the White House, July 20th, 1994. There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers. There are places to go beyond belief. That, Doctor, was what Neil Armstrong said, and that part of the line to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers seems awfully suggestive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do have a way we organize information in our mind-brain. We have a way of protecting ourselves from shocking ideas. And if we want to be ultra cautious, we just let shocking new ideas kind of float over our head and we don't buy into them.
Yes.
And that's one of nature's ways, all right.
All right, this is something people have always asked. A lot of the film and video that was taken on the moon, a lot of the film and video that's been taken in space, for that matter, never seems, according to my faxer from Memphis, to show stars. And people have always wondered why. It shows the blackness of space, but you never see the stars. Any thoughts?
Sure, that's because if you squeeze the shutter down in order so that you get some definition of the thing you're looking at, you have excluded the starlight, which is much fainter. But if you were to focus away from the sun and away from reflective light, open the shutter up, you won't see the stars.
It's absolutely true.
Same thing is true on the lunar surface. If you look through our lunar surface telescope from the lunar module, you saw stars very, very nicely. But on the lunar surface, if you look out, you should see stars, but the reflective light is bright enough that your eye shutter squeezes down, your eyeball squeezes down, you don't see them unless you're very well shielded. And certainly on your camera, if you're going to catch the definition on the surface, you've got to close the shutter and you exclude the stars.
Well, I can tell you that's true, because I not long ago the shuttle came back, returning to Earth, and here in the desert we got a beautiful look at it very early in the morning, about 4 o'clock in the morning. I went out with my camcorder, which is, maybe 1 or 2 lux, a good camcorder, and it began as a great orange glow in the west and grew and then suddenly shot across the horizon with a big kaboom. And I thought I got it, and I didn't get a doggone thing on my camcorder. So,
not enough light there.
Not enough light there, exactly.
Well, it's amazing how sensitive the eye is. We did a wonderful experiment coming back from the moon in which we put eye shades on, darkened the cabin, and then looked. And sure enough, we got meteor trails flashing across the eyeball, which were gamma rays, tiny little energetic solar particles flashing across the tissue of the eye.
Oh, my.
Just like a meteor flashes across the sky. And the optic nerve is sensitive enough to pick up that single photon.
Were there many worries, Doctor, that something the size of, a pebble or even a grain of sand would impact a spacecraft at high velocity? And
that was all. That was all part of the computation of how thick the spacecraft was and so forth. And sure, during periods of high solar or sunspot activity, we shouldn't be in space, not because of meteor particles, but because of the high energy that could penetrate and damage our bodies. And there's always a possibility that a high-velocity particle could fracture a spacecraft cabin, sure. A very low probability, but it's there.
All right. Let's take a few phone calls, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. Here we go. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air with Dr. Mitchell. Hi.
Hi, Art. This is Mary from Pioche, Nevada.
Yes.
Dr. Mitchell, someone was listening to you when you came on the air this morning, and he worked with you on the ESP experiment. Can you use your ESP now and tell me who it was?
I haven't any idea who it was. I can tell you if it's true if you tell me who it is, however.
Olaf Johnson.
Yes, well, Olaf is indeed the one that knew about it. He was involved. That's quite true.
Well,
and he also let the press know, and that got it all out in the public. That's right.
Oh.
There you are, ma'am.
He was listening to you this morning when you came on, and he was hoping that he could talk to you.
Well, if he can get through, he can talk to Dr. Mitchell. Would you have words for him? Have you had words for him regarding his letting the press know about it?
Well, it was, we'd hoped that wouldn't happen. It did cause a few difficulties in keeping this within the scientific genre instead of a sensational genre. And but we did publish, Dr. Ryan published the results, and everything works out the way it's supposed to, so I can't be too frustrated with up on that regard, but it would have been helpful if we'd announced it in a little more measured way.
You're not unhappy you did it?
Oh, good heavens, no. Because it did indeed show us that what we were experiencing works exactly the same way in space as it does here. And subsequent experiments in the laboratory have shown us that we don't have a space, we don't have a inverse squared effect like we do with other electromagnetic effects. That it is truly a non-local effect we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm. All right, east of the Rockies, you're on the air with Dr. Edgar Mitchell. Where are you, please?
Kansas City.
Kansas City. All right.
Dr. Mitchell, honored to speak with you. The
I'm
question
sorry?
I have for you is, you speak a lot about spirituality, and you speak about that people will not be so paranoid in the future with what they find out from what you believe we will find out. Do you have a religious feeling? Do you believe that there is a higher being controlling us?
I don't use the word being. I interpret it quite differently than that. I work with the idea of the God within rather than the God without. In other words, I consider the whole universe as divine intelligence. That we must, as I write in my book, that we scientists must rethink the problem that the gods do exist. They're throughout the universe. And I say to the theologian, your gods are too small. That the whole universe is in the divine experience. And we just merely need to change the subtle way we think about it a little bit, and it all fits, as far as I'm concerned.
So how would you explain life after death, or is there?
Well, that's a lengthy one. Read the book, and I do touch on that. I approach this from the point of view of energy and information, that it's a very natural thing that's taking place, that the information representing human life, or the experiences of human life, are indeed recorded, are indeed preserved is a better word. I call it the giant hard disk in the sky, facetiously. And we now have a quantum mechanical mechanism, which we're writing about and studying right now, as to how that takes place. We have a pretty good handle, a pretty good theory on what's happening here.
Doctor, I've always personally explained it by just believing that creation, however it occurred, and a creator are not necessarily at all mutually exclusive. And
that's right. That's right.
There's no reason the hand of the creator could not have molded and started all this on its way.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the details of the Big Bang. The details that we're talking about here are so fine that they become a little bit moot. But the fact is, this is a creative, organizing, intelligent universe. And the details of its beginning we still don't quite grasp, but perhaps we will in the future.
West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Dr. Edgar Mitchell. Good evening.
Oh, cool. Hi, this is Matt from Idaho.
Hello, Matt.
Hey, I could make a hobby of this. This is the second moonwalker I've talked to. So,
who else did you talk to?
Buzz Aldrin on Larry King's show.
Very good.
Back about a year ago. Anyway, I don't really have a question per se, other than just a little personal experience that I had. As far as Dr. Mitchell, when you talk about the experience of the oneness and whatnot, back in 1988, I was standing on the shore of Jackson Lake, Grand Teton Lodge, Grand Teton Park, and it was a perfectly smooth lake on a cloudless, beautiful night. And I was standing there. The whole lake was like a mirror, and all of a sudden, it's really hard to explain. It's like you say, but if you do experience it, you'll never forget it. And
that's exactly the point. The experience is sometimes ineffable, but once you have experienced it, you never forget it, and it's very hard sometimes to explain to someone else unless they've had the same experience. Then you don't need to explain it.
Yeah, about the only thing I could say is that about the closest I could come to it is like it was almost like every single cell in my brain just all of a sudden at once understood the whole thing just for a second.
In my book, I described this. The classical mystical experience is described in the literature as samādhi. This comes out of the Sanskrit, the ancient language of mysticism. And I describe this in the book as when the entire brain body is in resonance with the zero-point field. And it provides a sense of ecstasy, a sense of connectedness, a sense of this ineffable experience that you're trying to describe, and which I try to describe equally and effectively. But there is apparently now a physical explanation for this, and we must ask ourselves, why did nature provide these feelings at all? And of course, I go into that one in the book too.
All right.
Thank you, man.
Let's go into this one. Let's see if you can handle this one. Have you done any thinking about the nature of the soul? Somebody asked you about life after death. In other words, are we more than the sum total of our biological parts?
Yeah. That's where this information comes from. A way of looking at it, this is a metaphor, this is a way to look at it, is that the sum total of our experiences can be called information. Everything before now is just the information about what we've experienced. In other words, your life is information that you remember. In other words, everything in your mind right now is just a memory from the past.
Sure.
So, if we say that that memory, that information, is coherent, that there is a way that it is preserved, that is about as good a scientific description of the soul as one can come up with. And we now have a mechanism for how that is preserved and carried forward. That's what I'm working on at the moment. And it's a testable hypothesis. Science is going to be able to deal with this very, very shortly.
You believe that we will begin to get a grasp on it, actually?
I think we're doing so right now. I'm working with a number of scientists in Europe and here in the United States, including my good friend Hal Puthoff that I worked with for years, and we're all batting these ideas back and forth. And it goes to the nature of holography. In other words, one of the things in physics that we're all familiar with now is a hologram, or a holograph.
Sure.
It's two-dimensional and three-dimensional. And it turns out that the brain constructs its images much in the same way holograms are constructed. And it also turns out this may be nature's way of creating its coherence, its resonance, this interconnectedness we're talking about. Now, we're getting a little heavy for a early morning show, but that's probably going to be my next book as we try to explain this in lay terms.
Fascinating. Well, okay, we are the sum total of our experiences and maybe more. We're now entering an age where all kinds of memory and computer tricks are possible, and storage and speed are increasing of CPUs. Will the day not come when information may be exchanged between biological entities and machines? Or at least, I guess what we call machines now may become part biological themselves.
Well, I kind of question that, and this is a central point, so you can't be too adamant about it. But it's the fact that the inner experience of a silicon chip is probably quite different than the inner experience of a carbon-based brain. Mm-hmm. So it's not likely that we will have androids that are very good humans. It is because of this subtle difference in non-locality or inner experience, which goes to our intuition, our ESP, et cetera, all of which we humans experience because of the particular nature of our carbon-based mind-brain, spirit, if you will, which is somewhat different than a silicon entity.
It is, but there are people who talk of biologically based or hybrid computers of the future.
It is possible that we can do that. That certainly sophisticated computer technology, but there will be certain differences, and it's obviously much too early to tell how far we can go with that.
A lot of it, I guess, depends on the nature of awareness. What awareness?
Keyword. You just hit the keyword, Art.
Yes.
awareness, and this is what I describe in my book, that awareness is a fundamental attribute of nature, of the matter in nature. That if you start to examine awareness closely, as we in science used to think that it is a product of our evolved energetic molecules, it turns out you just can't get there from here. That awareness has to be indigenous to nature itself. Now, our mentality, our ability to think, to reason, to reflect, to be self-aware, yeah, that's probably due to our evolutionary path. But awareness itself probably is not. At least that's the thesis I put forth.
Fascinating. So you think we, in all probability, will not actually get to awareness, and if we do, then we're getting toward the core of it all, and I have to wonder if we should even be there.
Well, I don't know whether we shouldn't be there. I think we have to understand it. But I believe that understanding awareness and volition, awareness and volition go together in my model. They are right at the core of the question. When we understand awareness and volition, we're probably right at the central, crucial issue.
Fascinating. Doctor, I have held you now for 2 hours. I have 1 hour of the program left, and if you are up to it, I would hold you, or if you wish to rush off to breakfast, I know it's about 6 o'clock in the morning there.
Well, let me refinish my teacup, and I'll stay with you a little bit, if you like, because I'm enjoying talking with our folks.
Absolutely excellent. All right. Please go right ahead and do that. In the meantime, I'll begin to tell everybody how to get your book once again, all right?
Very good.
So go get some tea, and we'll hold you another hour. My guest is Apollo 14 astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell. This is a priceless opportunity, and we will lay more heavily on the phones in this final hour. He has written a book. It's called The Way of the Explorer. That's a good title, isn't it? The Way of the Explorer. Or otherwise, to go where no man has gone before. Anyway, if you would like an autographed copy of his book, it really is a rare opportunity, an autographed copy of his book, dedicated, I guess supply the verbiage you would like. He's willing to do that. He's going to be signing a lot of books. To get it, you send $35 to Post Office Box 6728, 6728, Lake Worth, that's 2 words, Lake as in that which holds all that water, and Worth as in Fort Worth, Texas, but not Texas. So Lake Worth, Florida, zip code 33461. Let me get that to you again. I know a lot of you are rushing for pens. This will be a priceless opportunity and probably a one-time chance to get an autographed copy like this. The Way of the Explorer. It is $35. It will be less in the stores, but of course you will not have a personally autographed version, and that's something to have as a keepsake. Post Office Box 6728, Lake Worth, Florida, 33461. And I would like to thank you all for participating. If you would like to either speak with Dr. Mitchell, or you're welcome to send a fax with a question. Let me give you my fax number. Here in Nevada, it is area code 702-727-8499. Now, I ask that you hold it to 3 pages, please. No more than that. I prefer 1 page, if you can do that. A faxed question at area code 702-727-8499. And so there you have it, an evening with somebody who's been to the moon. It's always been a dream of mine to be able to ask these kinds of questions to somebody who's done something that Dr. Mitchell said I may, but I suspect I may not ever get to the moon. In fact, that is a good question, I suppose, when we come back here in a moment, to ask whether any of us may have an opportunity to go. You never know. I never thought that I would get to fly at Mach 2 plus, but I did. I got to go to Paris in the Concorde, so who knows. Maybe an opportunity will present itself, and I will get to go to the moon yet. Just that I'm not betting on it. So when we've got somebody here who's actually been, it is indeed a priceless opportunity.